Tired of reading? Let the lazy husky do the work. We've got the best web novel audiobooks right here. Make sure to subscribe.
Chapter 25, Thunder Mountain. The sun had yet to rise to bask the earth in its beautiful glow, and the clouds painted the sky in a dull gray. It was still early in the morning, and while everyone else was peacefully resting in their tents, hidden from the elements in a small cave, the little kitten had sneaked out quietly and was now a few dozen meters away from the cave. Swoosh! A long and narrow cylindrical object flew through the air at a comfy speed. At one end of the floating object were two protrusions that made the object look like an arrow, while at the other end, two more protrusions pointed upwards and looked like a small pair of wings. It was a very peculiar-looking metallic arrow. As this metallic arrow drifted gracefully through the air, a dim azure glow was emitted, and if one were to look closely enough, one would notice a very thin line of the same azure glow leading from the arrow to the small figure below it. This figure was obviously the little kitten, whose eyes were currently lit up in her excitement. "I finally did it!" the little kitten exclaimed inwardly. "After several hours, I have finally learned the first spell of the arrow's shattering sky arts, the sky-piercing arrow spell." The little kitten started leaping excitedly as she continued to control that arrow with a gentle grace. Right now she could not move the arrow at great velocity without threatening the dissipation of the spell, but this was still a great first step, and her enthusiastic leaps insinuated this. Her celebration only came to a halt when she heard the sound of stifled laughter from behind her. Whipping her head back in a flurry, she saw the familiar sight of Jonathan leaning against a lone tree, his head bobbing back and forth with the back of a hand pressed against his lips in a feeble attempt to stifle his laughter. "Meow," the little kitten hissed. If she were human, her cheeks would be rosy red in her embarrassment. "I am sorry, but you have an interesting way of showing your happiness," Jonathan replied between his hysterical laughter. Exclamation point. The little kitten's beady head turned away from him with a humph. Okay. This young master will spare you from further taunting." Jonathan giggled before walking over to her position and standing across from her. "You ready for the morning hunt?" Meow. Her previous irritated mood vanished in a flash, and her beady head snapped back to face Jonathan with gleaming eyes. "Hey, nice to see you so enthusiastic again." Jonathan laughed. Irritated by his attitude once more, the kitten didn't pay him any heed any longer and walked off towards the surrounding forest with quick steps. Jonathan quickened his steps to catch up as he held back his laughter long enough to plead. "Wait up, I'm sorry. I won't make fun of you anymore." The stifled laughter that came after those words didn't convince her, and she quickened her steps with a last humph. The sky-piercing spell wasn't fully developed yet, so the little kitten continued to use her other two spells for her morning hunt. Still, these two spells, the Ravager Armor and the Celestial Claw spells, proved to be a deadly combination. A strong defense and a quick and sharp attack proved efficient in defeating most of these wild magical beasts. In the end, she was even able to secure the victory over two more high-stage magical beasts, among a half-dozen middle and low-stage magical beasts. By the time they had returned, Uncle Kill and the rest of Wilderwolf soldiers were in the midst of preparing to leave. Their tents and other equipment were sucked into Uncle Kill's magic pocket while the two servants were cleaning up after the morning meal. Luckily for Jonathan and the little kitten, a bowl of soup and some bread had been left behind, awaiting them. After devouring their individual meals, the party was ready to head off. Uncle Kill took this time to explain a few things about the journey ahead. "All right, listen up. To reach Thunder Mountain from our direction will require us to traverse the sides of a mountain called Mount Gale. This mountain, as can be inferred from its name, has strong winds and requires your full attention when traversing it, so be careful." "Yeah, I've heard it's impossible to ride horses or most magical beasts through this mountain," a Wilderwolf soldier stated. It's not the most dangerous place around, but it's quite inconvenient nonetheless." Another soldier sighed. "Oh, is this the reason we didn't buy any mounts at Evergale?" a servant asked. "That's one reason. But most importantly, it would also be a waste of money when we can just walk." Jonathan nodded his head in full seriousness. "To think to buy 2 carriages would cost 90 gold. You idiot nephew of mine, your love of money seems boundless." Uncle Kill couldn't help but shake his head in helplessness. 90 gold is a drop in the bucket after our gains during this trip, and you're still hoarding it. That mother of yours truly has strong genes. Hee hee. Of course, mother obviously has better genes than father, Jonathan snorted with a sly grin. Mother's boy? The little kitten noted. Days passed by like the breeze, and after passing by Mount Gale in a day, the party traveled further a couple more days until eventually, 13 days since their departure from Evergale City, a long-awaited sight could be seen in front of the party. The little kitten looked in awe at the wonderful sight in front of her and could not help but let out a gasp. Having traveled through the northern mountains for a few days now, she had seen many large and majestic mountains. But Thunder Mountain, while not the biggest, was definitely the most majestic and breathtaking. The mountain had 7 peaks, with the center peak piercing the boundless clouds above. The side of the mountain was colored in autumn colors of red and orange. Trees, grass and bushes littered the mountainside in abundance. The most majestic sight was 2-3 RDS up the mountain, because it was there that every one of them could see massive shapes slumbering back and forth. These were a beast whose height towered over the large trees around it. The beast had long, bulky legs and an equally long neck that protruded outwards like a giraffe. Its head looked like it had reptilian features, and slithering out its long back was a long and thick tail that was covered in shiny, desert orange scales. Those are the infamous, thunder-scaled half-dragon, Uncle Kill proclaimed. Those beasts are the protectors of this mountain and gave the mountain its namesake. Jonathan continued to explain. There is said to around 5 of them, and each one of them is said to be a major transcended beast with its leader, the queen being a sky beast. All the soldiers, servants, and even the little kitten couldn't help but dumbly open their mouths in awe after hearing Jonathan's explanation. All right, tuck your tongues back in. The gathering for the hunt has already begun. As Uncle Kill said this, he pointed outwards to an area around 2 miles in front of them. It was only then that she noticed several structures that had been built at the bottom of Thunder Mountain. There were several tents, and at the center, one tent in particular was spread wide at a few dozen meters long. While magically enhancing her eyes, the little kitten could further see the shapes of various people and beast alike roaming between the tents at a casual pace. These were magicians and their tamed beasts waiting for the Thunder Mountain hunt to begin. Chapter 26, The Miststep Magician. There was still a day left until the Thunder Mountain hunt would begin, so everyone who would be participating in the event had settled accommodation in either their own tents or in the large tent in the center of the encampment. Having their own tents and other necessities, the Wilderwolf party had settled at the edge of the encampment, and the servants went straight to work, cooking a meal as everyone was hungry after a full day of traveling. Once everyone was well rested and all necessary preparation was met, Uncle Kill walked off towards the main tent to inquire from the organizers of this event the details of the hunt. Meanwhile, Jonathan took this time to explain to the little kitten what he knew about Thunder Mountain, among other things. The Thunder Mountain hunt is an event that takes place every 2 years and has been taken place since nearly a century ago. At that time, a young but gifted magician was exploring the northern mountains and came across this mountain which was nameless at that time. While he was passing by, he stumbled upon secret ruins that can be located near the tip of Thunder Mountain. The details after that are mostly unknown, but the end result was that those ruins still remains and there are still benefits to be made. Jonathan said, and everyone around him listened intently. It seems that the ruin is very well designed and people can only manage to snag only a few treasures, no matter how powerful they are. There are many ruins or other such places around this world like the Thunder Mountain ruins, and we usually call these places Blessing of the God. When she heard that last part, the little kitten couldn't help but go into thought. It seems that there are quite a few mentions of these gods recently. First I learned that people call the language of magicians God's tongue, and now there are these Blessing of the Gods. I haven't seen anyone practicing any kind of religion so far, yet they still talk of gods. She stopped herself from thinking of this any longer and returned her attention to Jonathan as he began to speak up once more. When the Thunder Mountain ruins were opened by that genius magician, it has stayed open for people to explore and ever since, has released a strong amount of external aura. External aura is aura that is not created from our inner haven and is naturally existing in the world. It's not too uncommon, but the aura released from these ruins is very dense and has been attracting the surrounding magical beasts to this mountain ever since. And the strongest of these beasts enticed by this external aura are the thunder-scaled half-dragon. Ever since, the left guard, led by my father, has organized this event every 2 years, slowly trickling away the resources of this mysterious ruin. Meow. The little kitten meowed in a questioning manner, head tilted. Oh, are you wondering what the left guard are? Jonathan asked, to which the kitten's little head nodded in response. Before I have told you that my father, Alexander Wilderwolf, is the left-hand man of the king. This wasn't just a figure of speech but his actual title. In the kingdom of Falsio, directly below the king and queen are the right hand of the king and the left hand of the king, otherwise known as the leader of the left guard and the leader of the right watch. The left guard are responsible for all magical and militaristic matters in this kingdom, while the right watch are responsible for all domestic affairs, such as finance and law. Just as Jonathan was explaining this point, the sound of footsteps drew everyone's gaze to its source to see Uncle Kill returning to the camp with a solemn expression. Seeing this, Jonathan couldn't help but furrow his brows before asking, "What's wrong, Uncle? Has something come up?" It seems there are only 2 sky magicians attending the hunt this year. Uncle Kill replied. "Oh, aren't there usually at least 4? Jonathan said with furrowed brows. "How are we going to protect ourselves if something goes wrong and we face the wrath of those thunder-scaled half-dragons or some other calamity? What level are these magicians? Who are they?" First, to answer why there are only 2 this year, the people I asked said that something has stolen the attention of the kingdom's sky magicians and the kingdom can only spare 2 sky magicians to lead this hunt. Jonathan began. In fact, the left guard were planning to cancel this year's Thunder Mountain hunt until a certain magician volunteered to lead this hunt. Who is this sky magician? Jonathan asked, as much to himself than to Uncle Kill as he pondered on who this individual could be. Is he powerful? To be honest, not really. Uncle Kill stated flatly, adding to Jonathan and everyone else's confusion. What makes this person so reliable for this hunt is his strong insight into the rare element of void. Rare element of void? Jonathan exclaimed. Are you talking about the mist-step magician, Rod Vallin? Indeed. Uncle Kill replied with a smirk. Although the mist-step magician is only at the first stage of the sky realm, the reformation stage, even magicians of the stage above fear entangling with him. His combination of his mist element and his external insight into the element of void creates a deadly formation that can not only entrap his foe, but is excellent in retreating as well when faced with danger. Using the power of mist, he can create a cover over his enemy and then use the teleportation ability of void to attack from all directions. Truly a deadly opponent. The Wilderwolf soldiers and servants couldn't help but have a strong feeling of or mixed with fear thinking of this powerful magician. The little kitten was also affected by this introduction of the mist-step magician and couldn't help but hold some level of respect for this powerful magician. I see, so is the mist-step magician capable of mass teleportation then? Jonathan asked. Indeed, while it may take him some time to do so, it will still be of great aid in surpassing those thunder-scaled half-dragons and some other nasty beasts. Uncle Kill replied in confidence. Jonathan nodded in agreement before thinking of something else. Who's the other sky magician then? The second sky magician is another reformation stage magician called the Hidden Blade Magician. Uncle Kill answers. Oh, he's one of the newer magicians to enter the sky realm, right? Jonathan holds his chin in recollection. He specializes in the wind element, I believe. That's him. Despite only recently ascending to the sky realm, he's said to be one of the strongest throughout the continent. Uncle Kill's eyes shined in admiration. He'll definitely be of great aid to this hunt. The rest of that night continued with conversations like this. While listening somewhat, the little kitten eventually turned to cultivating once more. Despite constantly doing so, she still remained at the beginning of the late stage. Thinking of the aura that is said to be released by the Thunder Mountain ruins, she can't help but shiver in anticipation. That could be her chance to advance at a quicker rate. Eventually, the moon was at its highest point and the surrounding camps became silent as everyone turned in to rest for the night, including the Wilderwolf party. Under the pleading of Jonathan, The little kitten joined them a little later after being persuaded that she would need her energy for tomorrow. The hunt would begin at dawn. Chapter 27. Let the hunt begin. The little kitten woke up with an inaudible yawn as she pawed at her tired eyes. Her left eye peeked open for a second before closing once more, too tired to stay open. Before she could return to her slumber, however, a comparatively large hand brushed against her soft silver fur. The little kitten's greenish-red eyes opened once again to see Jonathan sitting up from his bed, covers draped down at his waist and one of his hands covering his mouth as he stifled a long yawn. "Wake up, little lass." Jonathan spoke between yawns. "We need to prepare for the long day ahead of us." While Jonathan got dressed, the little kitten squeezed her small frame through the tent's entrance and exited to the outside. Currently, everyone else from their party was up and about while Uncle Kill was nowhere to be seen. "I guess Uncle Kill is talking to the organizers again," the little kitten guessed. As she walked up to the warmth of the fire, a few of the soldiers greeted her with a few pats and she returned their greeting with a soft meow. Beside the fire, the two servants were cooking as always, and as the little kitten looked around, she could see the small fires of the surrounding tents and could see some other people in the middle of eating or cooking as well. Looking at these people more closely than before, she also began to notice some of the magical beasts roaming at their sides. She recognized some of these magical beasts as ones she had seen previously, such as the dark fang and the red-fanged boar. She also saw a beast that was rather like a bear. It lied with eyes closed next to its owner and had a peculiar set of ivory spikes jutting out of its back, making a line down its spine. There was also a person walking about with a snake-like magical beast swirled around his thick neck. This snake looked rather normal except that it had mystifying dark violet scales and excessively long sharp fangs that made any sane person hesitant to be anywhere near it. There truly are all sorts of magical beasts in this world. I've also come to realize that most magical beasts seem to be similar to a lot of the animals I recognize from my old world. At least that helps me understand them better, even if only a little. As she was thinking this, the tent she had just left moments ago opened once more and a yawning Jonathan crawled out in a leisurely fashion. "Good morning, little lass." Jonathan greeted with a smile before taking a seat next to the little kitten, not forgetting to pat her soft luxurious silver fur along the way. "Meow." She meowed back in greeting, leaning into his touch. Several minutes later, while the little kitten and Jonathan were in the middle of their morning meal, it was at this time that Uncle Kill returned, speaking as he walked over. "All right everyone, finish up your meals. Everyone's gathering at the edge of Thunder Mountain in 10 minutes. The little kitten and Jonathan's eyes lit up and they both began to consume their meals at a quickened pace. It wasn't only the little kitten who was excited about the Thunder Mountain hunt, even Jonathan was boiling with excitement at the prospect of gaining some spoils as it was also his first time taking part in this event. The red and orange forest of Thunder Mountain fluttered in the morning sun and the clouds above were dim with light gray clouds. Just outside the forest, a gathering of people and beasts alike was taking place. There had to be around 100 people in total, with only a small portion of them with magical beasts tagging along with them. At the forefront of this gathering 2 men stood tall like mountains. Both were tall, yet gave off very different impressions. On the left, the man stood with arms behind his back. He had long, flowing brown hair and a handsome countenance. When one looked at him, one couldn't help but feel like they were looking at a hero. This was aided by his clothing, which mainly consisted of light but strong-looking silver armor mixed with brown leather. His blue eyes swept through the crowd of people before him and everyone felt that those eyes could read into their very being. This was the power one gains at the spirit rank, the conscious eye. An ability that lets a magician scan external magic just as well as their unconscious eye scans themselves. At the spirit rank, one could only read their opponents of the same level and below, and required the opposing party to first activate their power. However, at the Reformation stage and onwards, the conscious eye will only improve with every breakthrough in rank. At the Reformation stage, a magician could read a person's aura without it being activated, though they wouldn't be able to read into magicians of a higher rank unless that opponent wished for them to. The second person held a mysterious air. Upon his head was a small black mask that covered the area around his eyes and swept back behind his 2 ears. His red eyes also swept through the crowd and gave off the same feeling as the heroic man, except his gaze also held a trace of a sinister oppression that seemed to weigh down on every single one of them. His black hair was swept back and shone in the orange morning glow. A black robe reached his ankles and his hands were hidden behind long and baggy sleeves. When those red eyes finished scanning the crowd, the black-masked man's mouth suddenly formed into a small, somewhat sinister smirk and he proceeded to speak in a loud and clear voice. Everyone who heard it felt like his voice was speaking directly at them in an overbearing manner. Listen up. I am the leader of this hunt, the Mist-Step magician, Rod Valin. Call me Mist-Step. Mist-Step then turned to his right and gestured towards his companion who nodded back in compliance. And I am the Hidden Blade magician, Brandon Mose. Likewise, you can simply call me Hidden Blade. The little kitten couldn't help but take in a deep breath. How oppressive, they're just standing there and I feel a huge pressure weighing down on me. Mist-Step's commanding voice broke everyone out of their thoughts with a sneer. Snap out of it. There's no time to be scatterbrained. When we enter Thunder Mountain, there are going to be beasts ranging from minor magical beasts to major transcended magical beasts in the many hundred. Correct. I see a few magician and magical beasts here that are quite low in rank, so you better stick close to your companions if you want to come out of this alive. Hidden Blade spoke up at this time, his tone being comparatively warmer than his counterpart. I'll try to look out for those stronger beasts, but I can't take the time to protect all 100 and more of you at all times. On day 1, we'll be traveling up the mountain at quite a quick speed with the goal of reaching a cave that has been set up with magical runes of protection. Mist-Step continued. There are 2 more of these caves, making 3 in total, each taking around a day's worth of travel to reach. After that 3rd cave, it's time to get past those roaming thunder-scaled half-dragons. But you won't have to worry about them, it's my job to get you past them through the use of the Void Magic's mass teleportation spell. Alright, everyone, are we ready? Hidden Blade asked with a smirk. In answer to this, a mass majority of the once silent gathering took in a deep breath before bellowing outwards with various battle cries. I'm definitely going to get a powerful treasure from those ruins. I'm gonna pave a path of blood. This is my chance to finally make a breakthrough. Many people began to shout bold proclamations, rousing each other's fighting spirit. The little kitten couldn't help but feel her blood pumping aggressively as well. She looked at Jonathan to see his lips pursed up into a grin and she could tell that he was looking forward to the adventure ahead as well. Alright then, Hidden Blade bellowed with a large grin. Then let the hunt begin. Chapter 28, The Trek Through Thunder Mountain, 1. The morning sun had barely risen above the horizon and grey clouds still continued to coalesce in the sky while several footsteps could be heard under the shade of red and orange trees. As the over 100 magicians and magical beasts traveled their way up Thunder Mountain, they all congregated into their own small groups and walked along separately, making sure to keep the group in front of them always in their sight. In the Wilder Wolf party, after walking for 1 hour in a rather lax manner, a sudden loud growl broke their brief moment of peace. Instantly, everyone's gaze fixed to the source of the growl and in the dim light of the forest a shadowed predator slowly walked into view. This beast walked on 4 lean legs and had a long, 2-meter-long sleek, black-furred body. Its red eyes glowed in a menacing light. It's a black hunter, Uncle Kill shouted out, his eyes turned vigilant as his body rapidly took on a fighting stance. It seems to be at the minor transcendence rank. Got it. Jonathan quickly joined Uncle Kill's side while shouting. Everyone else stand back, me and Uncle have got this. The little kitten leapt out of Jonathan's grasp and retreated along with the other soldiers and servants. In a matter of seconds, Uncle Kill and Jonathan are already in a scuffle with this lean predator. The little kitten watched as the black hunter beast weaved and dodged a series of icicle attacks before sucking in a breath of air that it then exhaled outwards in a large, bestial growl. Boom! A black flame shot out of the beast's mouth, no larger than a tennis ball, and smashed into the ground where Uncle Kill once was. Fortunately, Uncle Kill had reacted quickly and had dodged the black flame, promptly avoiding when that deceptively small flame proceeded to explode into a human-sized explosion. Jonathan took this chance as the black hunter beast was distracted with Uncle Kill to make a strike of his own. ZZZTTZ. The sound of electricity buzzed in the air and one could see lightning coalescing around Jonathan's right hand. As quick as lightning, Jonathan's flash palm struck down towards the distracted Black Hunter beast. Despite being distracted, the Black Hunter noticed this dangerous threat in a matter of seconds and quickly rotated its lean body to dodge the brunt of the flash palm's attack radius. Yet, the speed of Jonathan's attack was too fast and the beast still suffered from the residual electricity that coursed through the beast's body, forcing the beast to let out a shrill cry. In seconds, the beast leapt back away from its two opponents to save itself from suffering a second blow and to give itself some time to recover from Jonathan's attack. As that battle continued on, the little kitten and everyone else watched with rapt attention, not noticing another predator sneaking up from their side. Bang! The sound of a heavy footstep ringed aloud and broke the little kitten's attention on Jonathan and Uncle Kill's battle. Looking to her left, she found a large shape leaping out from the darkness, its large jagged teeth on display as it came down upon one of the Wilderwolf soldiers. The Wilderwolf soldier, despite his shock, reacted quickly and raised his long, rune-empowered spear into the air. He is holding it with one hand holding the far left end and his other hand at the far right below the spear's pointed blade. The attacking beast's mouth is caught by the spear's metallic pole and is held back by the Wilderwolf soldier's impressive strength. Each one of the Wilderwolf soldiers are at the high stage foundation rank while this soldier, the spear wielder, is the leader of the 6 soldiers and is at the peak of that stage, nearing his breakthrough into the Inner Haven rank. All of the Wilderwolf soldiers' main asset is their physical prowess and it was clearly put on display here as the spear-wielding soldier began pushing the beast that is larger than himself backwards. The large beast's bottom feet began to push into the soft dirt as its large shape was pushed further and further back, helpless against its opponent's surprising strength over it. This beast, which one could see as being a bear-like beast with long red fur and a large swirling ivory horn, is quickly identified by the little kitten as the crimson-furred horned bear. This was a beast she had seen previously while hunting with Jonathan and was usually around the major magical beast rank. Obviously, with her only ranking at the minor rank, she would avoid someone of this beast's level, so she had not seen one fighting before. Attack! While their leader was holding off the crimson-furred bear, one of the soldiers shouted this out. With a flick of his wrists his long blade is drawn and with a single step he is joined by 2 others as they leap at the crimson-furred beast. Grua! The crimson-furred beast's pained voice bellows out as it is stabbed deeply by 3 blades, all piercing through its tough fur and stabbing into its chest and stomach area. The beast stumbles backwards as it vomits blood a few times before finally succumbing to its death. Its large body kicking up dust as its large frame collapses to the floor. Phew, the Wilderwolf soldier with the spear finally relaxes as his blood-pumping muscles recede to their normal state. The little kitten looked on in amazement. Wow, this is my first time seeing the soldiers fighting. Usually it's Jonathan and Uncle Kill taking up the reins. What great teamwork and powerful strength. Their blades pierced that bear like it was made out of butter. They were also quick acting, not delaying for a second before acting in unison. The Wilderwolf army sure seems well trained, though I don't have much to compare them to, so who knows. Boom. A large, explosive sound is heard and then a wave of wind streaks across the surrounding area. The little kitten is forced to close her eyes due to the strong gale force and can only open them once again when it has passed. When her curious eyes open again once more, she finds that Jonathan and Uncle Kill's fight has concluded and the Black Hunter beast is now laying lifeless. And without a head. Ha ha ha. Did you see that, nephew? That's the power of my fist. Uncle Kill boasted with a bellowing laugh, his fist waving about animatedly. Strangely, steam seemed to be rising from the fist and his usually white skin had taken on a pink hue around the fist as well. Your fist arts are to be truly feared, uncle. Jonathan could only laugh with a wry smile. However, those fists didn't stop you from getting cut across the chest. Ah. Uncle Kill's cheeks turned red in embarrassment and the little kitten turned her gaze to find a large but shallow gash on his chest. I was distracted by your horrible display of what you call your magic. Ha, is that so? Jonathan asked with a mocking grin. Uncle truly is shameless, considering all those punches that seemed to always miss. If it wasn't for my lightning paralyzing it for a moment, your proud fists looked as if they would never hit. That's it, You brat. Uncle Kill growled and his right fist began to steam up, turning a darker shade of pink, from pink to red. Master, young master, we have no time for this. The spear-wielding Wilderwolf soldier quickly spoke up with a wry smile. Look, if we don't move now, we'll lose sight of the other people. The soldier pointed ahead and everyone could see that the group ahead of them was walking off into the horizon, soon to be out of their range of sight. TCH. Uncle Kill tutted. We're having another spar tonight. Hihi, you're on Uncle. Jonathan smirked while cracking his knuckles, which got a short humph out of his uncle before he began walking ahead. Despite his grumbling, the little kitten could see the mirth in Uncle Kill's eyes once he turned away from his annoying nephew. Showing that he wasn't truly angry, Jonathan joined the soldiers in cutting up the two dead beasts and salvaging all the parts they could before joining Uncle Kill in their journey up Thunder Mountain. The little kitten found her usual perch in Jonathan's hands and her eyes gazed left and right in rapt attention. I'm not going to be left out in the next fight, the little kitten thought with determination. Chapter 29, The Trek Through Thunder Mountain, 2. There was a bellowing roar before a beast dashed forward with a ferocious growl. This beast was around a meter long and had tiger-like legs, but bulging, ape-like arms. 4 dagger-like eyes held a stubbornness as the beast once again attempted to strike its opponent with one of its ape-like fists. Its opponent, a small silver shape, twisted and elegantly dodged this fist that made dust fly into the air. The small beast followed this by leaping in an arc and landing softly on the ground with her soft paws, completely avoiding another strike from the attacking beast. Her silver fur was graceful in the light of the sun that peeked through the orange and red leaves above. The little kitten hissed before singing a chant which caused a metallic and earthly substance to weave around her lithe body. In a matter of seconds, a flexible but sturdy silver armor graced her body. The two beasts, one small and one big, began to walk circles around each other, waiting upon the right moment to strike. A few meters distance from them, other conflicts were also being held. The Wilderwolf soldiers were trading blows with similar-looking beasts while Jonathan and Uncle Kill were fighting a beast each that, while also looked similar, were not at the same time. The most striking difference between these two beasts and the other beasts which they resembled were their white fur, which gave them an elegant air compared to the brown fur of the others. These two beasts were also noticeably taller as well. Meanwhile, the little kitten and her opponent's standoff came to a sudden end when the ferocious beast charged forth, its front arms creating cracks in the ground as it pounded forward. How frightening! The little kitten couldn't but yelp in her mind. This was definitely the most physically powerful beast she had faced so far. Despite this, her eyes quickly corrected themselves, changing from a look of apprehension to one of determination. This is a early-stage major magical beast, the tiger ape. The little kitten said in thought. Will my celestial claw spell cut through its tough skin? Only one way to find out. The sound of a young and harmoniously beautiful voice rang out once more and the little kitten chanted the celestial claw spell. With quick steps, her small frame danced around the tiger ape's charge, and with a ferocious swipe of her claws, 4 white lines shot out from her outstretched paw and dug into the tiger ape's brown fur. Blood spilled into the air and a loud cry could be heard escaping the beast's gaping mouth. The celestial claw had dug in quite deep into the beast's backside. Yet, when the little kitten landed and inspected the damage she had caused, she could already tell that the wound she had dealt was already in the process of being healed. Right, major magical beasts have improved recovery rates. The little kitten tutted. This is going to be a battle of attrition. Aura-filled claws danced in the air and the sound of fist meeting ground and trees could be constantly heard resounding around this area of the forest as the two beasts continued their fight for several minutes more. Thankfully, the little kitten seemed to be inherently agile and had little trouble dodging the tiger ape's slower movements. The most damage she received was residual waves of aura bursting forth from a few of the opposing beast's punches. This only caused a nipping damage and a few shallow cuts. Meanwhile, the tiger ape had suffered from continuous attacks of the celestial claw spell and, despite his acute recovery rate, could not keep up with the new wounds it was receiving every other second. Eventually, its body could not keep up and collapsed to a still. It had died from its piling wounds. Finally, the little kitten let out a long and exhausted sigh. I'm all out, I couldn't have lasted another second. Sitting down to rest her aching muscles, she breathed heavily and her throat was in pain from the constant chants she had to speak. She could not wait to learn how to perform these spells without chanting. It would not only make performing spells faster, but would also save her poor throat from aching so much. With one last long breath, the little kitten was able to recover to a normal breathing rate and took this time to observe the other fights around her. She found that there were quite a lot of tiger apes lying motionless on the floor, and she was just in time to notice Uncle Kill's right fist striking right through one of the white tiger ape's chests. Soon after, she also found that Jonathan's prey had also been struck dead with a series of ice spikes that were stabbing into it from practically every direction. These glacial spikes sprouted from the earth below, the trees and even the leaves. Pierced by a few dozen spikes made of ice, the beast's eyes had quickly turned dull and lost all its luster. Finally, through the combined work of the Wilderwolf soldiers, the last few remaining beasts were cleaned up in an orderly fashion, their teamwork on full display. After extracting all their gains, Uncle Kill pushed everyone to hurry onward as they were losing track of the other groups. Time moved slowly once more as everyone ascended Thunder Mountain step by step. Every now and then, they would encounter beasts unfortunate enough to run into them, and other times they would find themselves coming to the aid of a few other groups who had encountered more trouble than they could chew. As the hours passed with constant struggles, eventually, dusk came and the moon rose into the night sky, glowing in its usual dazzling silver gleam. Around the same time, the large party of magicians and magical beasts had finally arrived to their first destination. This place was not even a third of this large mountain, only reaching the apex of the first and lowest point out of the 5-pointed tops of Thunder Mountain. The autumn forest opened up and a large cliff could be seen as far as their eyes could see, swirling into the distance. One could see the autumn trees dangling above the cliffs and heading into the distance up the mountains once more. Directly ahead of all of them, they could see a large, several meters high cave opening that dug into this cliff to an unknown distance. Around the outer rim of the cave, one could see runes curving in an arc around the cave's entrance. So this is the first checkpoint, Jonathan noted as he gazed upon the sight in front of them. In his hands, he held the little kitten who'd been using the last few small moments of peace to continue her cultivation and rest her aching body. All right everyone, if there are any rune master magicians out there, I would like you to aid me in activating the cave ruins. Mist Step spoke out in a loud and clear voice. Discussion broke out in the many individual groups before a few people began to walk forward to stand in front of him. Mist Step lead these people to the cave entrance while Hidden Blade lead everyone else into the cave proper. Inside, the little kitten noticed a line of unlit torches gracing the walls before they were suddenly lit alight in quick succession by Hidden Blade with the casual flick of his index finger. Looking inwards into the now lit-up cave, the little kitten could now see that the cave continued on for a while before opening up to a huge open area. As Jonathan walked into this open area, she found that this space was massive, reaching around 200 meters in diameter. Soon, people were dragging out their belongings out of their magic pockets and setting up their tents once more, preparing for the night ahead. Looking back to the cave entrance, the little kitten also noticed those people who are known as rune master magicians standing around the cave's entrance, their fingertips glowing in a visible azure glow as they danced about, seemingly interacting with something that she could not comprehend. Everyone, settle down for the night and make sure not to leave this cave, not that you can anyway. Hidden Blade gave off his last order before entering the largest tent that was the same one from before at the bottom of Thunder Mountain. Suddenly there was a gleam of azure light, and looking at the source, she found that the cave entrance now had some kind of azure see-through barrier covering it. She also saw Mist Step and the few rune masters nodding their heads and speaking amiably before walking towards the encampment. Day 1 was completed like that with no incident. Chapter 30, The Trek Through Thunder Mountain, 3. Zoom. A metallic arrow swishes by at great speed, dancing in circles and creating a blurred silver trail in its wake. The arrow only comes to a stop when it suddenly dissolves into dust. A meter from the dissolving arrow, the little kitten's eyes hold an excited gleam as she purrs in contentment. Finally, I have perfected the sky-piercing spell to the point where I can use it in battle. The little kitten thought in glee. Next, I should start learning the Dance of the Flames arts. If I remember correctly, This art's spells are but an evolution of the previous spells in the art, and being a late-stage magical beast, I should be able to learn up to the second spell, Wandering Glow. However, it is still recommended that I learn the spells in their given order to more smoothly learn the art as a whole. So it is time to learn the spell, Living Spark. Thinking up to this point, the little kitten proceeded to search her memories of the Dance of the Flames art's Echo Stone. Her cognitive abilities has been good ever since she arrived in this world, and it was put on fully display in this moment as she successfully memorized those memories in great detail within moments. Eventually, she was content with the knowledge she had gathered and felt she was ready to proceed with the physical component of learning the spell. It should be like this. Thinking this in her mind, the little kitten proceeded to sing a chant in her usual voice that rang out in a beautiful tune. It was currently early in the morning and the sun had yet to fully grace the land in its grand light, yet a sudden glow of light lit up the area around the little kitten as a speck of fire formed in front of her visage. It glowed in a soft red glow and was shaped bizarrely in the shape of a small snake that slithered gracefully in the air, its whole width no longer than a few centimeters. It's quite small. The Living Spark spell should be around the size of a full-grown man's forearm and take on the form a snake. Its movements should be graceful and precise like a dancer. Hence the name of the art, Dance of the Flames. Okay, let's try this again, the little kitten thought with determination. The small flame disintegrated and the cat sang the same chant once more, summoning the Living Spark spell once more. Try after try, the Living Spark continued to form closer into its true form with every attempt. Eventually, by the time an hour had passed, a much larger, forearm-long well-defined snake-like beast was flying through the sky, colored in a crimson glow. It was difficult to discern that this magical spell was even made of fire, as the chaotic flames seemed to stay in its constant shape with only some defects every now and then of flames sparking out of its sculpted shape. Inside this cave, there were several features such as fresh water pools, bushes, and even trees. Next to the little kitten, she chose one of these trees at random and commanded the Living Spark forth, and the flaming snake charged through the air in a graceful arc. When the Living Spark spell made contact with the tree, it simply passed through it as if not making contact at all. Yet, in its wake, the tree erupted in a torrent of flames and in minutes had burnt to embers. Truly formidable. The little kitten couldn't help but exclaim in thought. Let's go for Wandering Glow now. Little lass, it's time to head off. The voice of a young male voice brought an end to the little kitten's training. A flaming snake that was alike to the Living Spark spell, but slightly larger and more of an orange color, dissipated once more, and the little kitten turned to find Jonathan laying casually against a wayward tree, a pleased smirk on his face. It's finally time. The little kitten went into thought. It's the 4th day since we began our journey up Thunder Mountain. Despite a few casualties, we had successfully reached the 3rd and last cave the night before. Now, we should be able to reach the Thunder Mountain ruins by night time. This thought excited her and she quickly dashed in Jonathan's direction before leaping into his open hands. Jonathan laughed at her enthusiasm and couldn't help but also get excited for the upcoming adventure as he caught her lithe form. Looking around, the little kitten noticed many of the tents were either gone now or were in the process of warping into someone's magic pocket. Everyone was clearing their belongings and gathering at the cave's exit, ready to travel onward. Except, not everything was cleared up, as some tents and other gadgets remained behind along with some people. These people were non-magicians, such as servants who would not be entering the Thunder Mountain ruins as they would not receive any benefits and would simply be a burden. The Wilderwolf's 2 servants were a part of this group and they would be left behind to await their master's return. Leaving behind the tent and a few supplies for the 2 servants, the rest of the Wilderwolf party departed from their camp and headed towards the cave's exit. At the cave exit, the little kitten saw various magicians at work, their fingertips alight as they stood in close distance to the azure sheet that acted as a barrier at the cave's entrance. This process would take a while, even with the help of the Miststep magician, so everyone took this small moment to get some last rest before the struggle ahead. "Uncle, you've been in these ruins before, right?" Jonathan asked as he took a seat beside Uncle Kill, the little kitten resting in his hands as she observed her surroundings before turning to her cultivation. "I have," Uncle Kill replied before elaborating. "I've taken part in it twice, though it was a long time ago. Then, what can we expect when we enter? Jonathan asked, and the surrounding Wilderwolf soldiers couldn't help but also pay extra attention to Uncle Kill's upcoming answer as well. This would be their first time taking part in the Thunder Mountain hunt as well. You all should get to know a little before entering. Uncle Kill nodded. All right, listen up. When you enter, the first thing that will happen would be that everyone will be teleported apart from each other. Whoa! One of soldiers exclaimed. The ruins will teleport us. Another mumbled in shock. Me. They don't call these places the blessing of the gods for nothing. Teleportation magic is a simple thing for these places. Uncle Kill harumphed with a wave of his hand for dramatic effect. You'll be taken to a place where you'll undergo a series of tests. According to your results, you will be rewarded. The most someone has received from this ruin is a gold rarity vibrant weapon. Reminder of weapon ranks: blue, purple, gold for rarity dull, vibrant, pulsing for power. Gold! The soldiers couldn't but help but collectively exclaim. But that's only a vibrant item. Has there not been a pulsing item received from these ruins then? Jonathan quickly got over his excitement and asked this question, though he still held excitement of the possibility of gaining such a grand item of gold rarity. Indeed, there hasn't been a pulsing item rewarded before. Uncle Kill nodded in agreement. That's why you don't see many sky magicians undertaking the Thunder Mountain hunt. The ones that do are here simply for protective reasons, as the kingdom is usually sending future prospects into this hunt. I see. Oh. As he was in thought, Jonathan seemed to suddenly notice something. Looks like it's time. The little kitten's head turned to face the same direction Jonathan was facing and noticed that the azure barrier was currently dissipating. From the center, the azure aura that made up this barrier vanished, revealing the dimly lit forest outside and the tapping sound of rain on the damp ground below. It was time to continue their journey up Thunder Mountain. Chapter 31, Void Teleportation. Swish. A sky-piercing arrow struck its target in a swift motion, piercing the tough hide of a large and malicious-looking magical beast. This beast that stood at least 2 meters tall and wielded sharp, massive claws was struck lifeless as this arrow pierced its neck and swiveled outwards before vanishing into dust. I finally got a hit. The little kitten exclaimed in thought as she leapt backwards and into safety as that large magical beast's lifeless body fell flat before her at the place she had stood just moments ago. That beast was a lot swifter than it looked. Nice one, little lass. Jonathan cheered on the side as he wielded what seemed like some sort of blade made of pure electricity, which he proceeded to pierce through the chest of a magical beast of similar bearing. All right, that was the last one, Uncle Kill said with a smirk as he wiped his blooded fists, his fists having seen much action in the last few hours since they had left the last cave. This kitten is shocking me every other second with your abilities. A Wilderwolf soldier who was sheathing his long blade spoke up as he walked into the scene. To think a young kitten is capable of killing early-stage major magical beast. Yeah, you've thoroughly impressed us, little kitten. Another soldier spoke up with a laugh as he leaned down to pat the little kitten's head, who purred in satisfaction and pride. Here, praise me more. The little kitten purred smugly. Okay. Let's not stroke her ego too much. Jonathan laughed. Literally or figuratively. This got a laugh out of the surrounding soldiers who had begun to excavate the fallen magical beasts at this point, salvaging any valuable materials and sending them over to Jonathan and Uncle Kill to keep them safe in their magic pockets. At this time, the voice of a woman belonging to the group ahead of them shouted out. We're to regroup, we've arrived at the thunder-scaled half-dragon's territory. Relay to the group below you. Uncle Kill quickly replied before doing as instructed, repeating what she said to the group below them. Soon, after settling everything with the excavation of the magical beast's body parts, the Wilderwolf party reached the rest of the gathering magicians and magical beasts at what looked to be the edge of a part of the forest where the mountain opened up to a large clearing. Peeking out from the last vestiges of the forest, the little kitten could see the rest of Thunder Mountain consisted of a series of ledges and crisscrossing pathways before reforming into the forest once more. Looking left and right, she also noticed that they had reached the apex of the second tallest mountain peak of the 5 peaks that make up Thunder Mountain and that the light rain that has been bearing down on the earth had begun to settle, though the sun still hid its shining body behind dim grey clouds, casting a dull shadow over the land. However, all of these findings were secondary to the main object of note. The towering and fear-inducing thunder-scaled half-dragon that was standing directly in front of all of them at a distance of about 500 meters. Standing at even this distance from these beasts was a daunting task, and the little kitten felt her fur extend to their furthest reach and her small but sharp claws dug into the dirt below. A pressure seemed to press down on her, and she couldn't peer her gaze away from this beast as it took excruciatingly slow steps forward, one after the other. A dull echo and a quake beneath their feet spoke of this beast's great strength. A stoic voice broke her and everyone else out of their trance as the reassuring voice of Hidden Blade spoke out. "Everyone, don't fear these beasts for now. I have used a magical talisman that makes the surrounding area undetectable to any beast below the sky realm." A collective breath of relief sounded out of the various magicians as some of them took another fearful gaze as the monolith of a beast passed by. While these thunder-scaled half-dragons were still below the sky realm and only at the major transcendence rank, they were still at the tip of the iceberg of the magical beasts at that stage. Aided by their tough bodies and being in a collective group with others of their kind, the threat these magical beasts posed was not light. Especially when you consider that their leader, the queen, was a magical beast of the sky realm. And don't worry about the queen. The queen usually spends most of her time in cultivation or in pregnancy. She won't have the time to trouble us," Hidden Blade said with a smirk full of confidence, reigniting the morale of many of the gathering magicians who had been drawn under a sort of spell in front of the thunder-scaled half-dragon's might. "These thunder-scaled half-dragons are an interesting beast." Uncle Kill began in a whisper, only enough for his group to hear. "All the beasts except for the queen are androgynous, and when the queen dies, one of the beasts will eat her inner haven organ and then go through a metamorphosis, becoming the next queen. The fight to eat the inner haven organs between the thunder-scaled half-dragons is said to shake mountain in their wake. It would truly be an amazing sight. Now then, let's turn to Miststep for the next part in our journey," Hidden Blade said as he nods towards the Miststep magician who is standing at his side. Miststep nods back before speaking up in his usual intimidating manner. "Listen, it will take me an hour to set up the void teleportation portal spell. When it is done, it will take around another half an hour for everyone to enter through this portal, as I can only support a certain amount of people going through at a time. Void teleportation is a process of creating a rift through the void dimension. If we put too much weight upon the rift, it risks shattering and everyone who is currently traveling through that void is dead, with little error," Hidden Blade warns, and Miststep nods in agreement. "Now then, everyone should take this time to rest for an hour and make sure to keep an eye out for any magical beasts that stumble upon this area. My talisman has simply made them unable to sense us. They can still reach us, so watch out." "Yes," a bunch of the gathering magicians replied heartily. Soon, most everyone had settled down in this edge of the forest, resting against trees and rocks, talking about the journey behind and ahead of them while also keeping an extra eye out for any surprise threats. The little kitten also took this time to rest, meditating to increase her natural healing. While she may have only suffered minor wounds during the last 3 days, mainly thanks due to the constant work of her surrounding allies, she has still suffered enough wounds that would hinder her if she let them be. Not to mention the exhaustion she now felt after 3 days of strenuous action. As she does this, Jonathan and Uncle Kill also rest up, but their wounds are non-existent and they are happily chatting while doing so. "Uncle, to my knowledge there are only 2 elements that allow for teleportation, right?" Jonathan asks as he swishes his right hand. With that casual action, the growing moss and soaked area of a rock is wiped clean, perfect for when he takes a seat upon it. "As far as I know," Uncle Kill replies and continues after some thought. "The 2 elements which allow teleportation are the element of space and, obviously, the element of void. Both are very different though. While void teleportation breaches the void dimension to teleport, space teleportation is much simpler in contrast, as it doesn't require leaving this dimension and entering the domain of another." "Which one's better then?" Jonathan asked, curious. I would say that they both have their advantages and disadvantages. In battle, space teleportation is usually considered superior as it is instantaneous, while void teleportation will inevitably have a delay as it requires the magician to first enter the void dimension before returning to our dimension, causing a slight but prominent delay. Uncle Kill states, his hand on his chin as he tries to find the right words to explain this to his nephew. So then is the advantage of void teleportation that one can create a portal for mass teleportation? Jonathan's eyes take on a glint as he blurts this out. This is one advantage. Though you have to know, space teleportation can also teleport people at mass. But they can't create a portal, which will remain in place for however long the user wishes, as long as it is supplied with aura once its initial supply runs dry. Time passed like this amidst casual conversation, and every dozen minutes, a stray magical beast would be spotted but quickly taken care of by various magicians and the few tamed magical beasts as well. In the end, an hour passed like the breeze, and the little kitten took a break from her meditation to see that a daunting-looking portal could be seen in full view just in front of the Miststep magician. This portal was around 5 meters long and curved into a circle. The center of this portal was pitch black, darker than any black the little kitten had seen in her life, and it gave the little kitten the feeling as if she was looking into nothingness. At the rim of the portal, this blackness blurred into an azure color until it was clearly aura that drifted from the portal like smoke. Everyone, I will go through the void portal first. When I reach the other end, I will set up another area of stealth using my own talisman. Then, Hidden Blade will guide you in groups of 5 through the portal, with a group walking through at a period of every 2 to 3 minutes. Miststep announced, his words swift and to the point. And when we reach the other end of this portal, we will be but mere hours away from the tip of Thunder Mountain and the ruins that lie there. Hidden Blade said with a grin as he pointed over his shoulder to the mountain peak behind him, which was shrouded in the fog of the horizon. Chapter 32, Towards the Peak. With a single step, Miststep's body faded into the void portal and vanished from everyone's sight. Meanwhile, Hidden Blade began to organize everyone into neat lines with people standing in groups of 5. As the Wilderwolf party had a total of 8 people and 1 magical beast, their group was inevitably split. Jonathan and the little kitten would stick together and would be joined by 3 of the soldiers. Meanwhile, Uncle Kill would lead the second group with the remaining soldiers and a random person belonging to another party. The little kitten kept her eyes on the passing by thunder-scaled half-dragon as the time passed, studying the magnificent beast. Soon, after around 20 minutes had passed without issue, it was her group's time to enter the portal. As she laid in Jonathan's sturdy hands, she heard his voice speak softly above her. "Are you ready, little lass?" "Meow." The little kitten replied spiritedly. With parallel steps, Jonathan, the soldiers and the little kitten entered the void portal. Instantly, the little kitten and everyone else found themselves in a world of darkness. The same color of the portal surrounded them to infinity. Every now and then, the little kitten noticed warps in far reaches, like ripples in water. But before she could study this further, a bright light appeared ahead of her and the rest of the group before charging at them, blinding her sight. The next thing she knew, she found her eyes adjusting to the familiar landscape of mountainous terrain around them. They appeared before a forest of red and orange trees, and as Jonathan turned to look behind them, bringing the little kitten's sight along with him, the little kitten could tell that they had traveled past the clearing where the thunder-scaled half-dragons roamed. She also noticed just a small meter from them, another void portal which would be where they had presumably exited from to arrive at this place. Suddenly, before she could think on this any further, she felt her vision go blurry once more and she had a deep feeling of vertigo. Jonathan noticed this and with a quick motion took grab of her at the waist and held her with outstretched arms, just in time for the little kitten to puke out a batch of vomit violently. Looking around, Jonathan also noticed his soldiers were also suffering with pale faces, though they were noticeably better off than the kitten in his hands. "Couldn't they have warned us about this?" Jonathan muttered with a wry smile. To comfort the kitten, Jonathan pulled her back into his embrace and began to pat her small back softly. "Never again. I was looking forward to what it would be like to teleport. I never thought it would feel so terrible." The little kitten's tongue lolled out as her head swayed back and forth, her mind was still abuzz and her sight blurry, causing her to feel dizzy. "Hey, move away from the portal," one of the other magicians called out. Unless you want to be banged in the head by the next group. Ah, right. Jonathan nodded before leading his group away from the portal, and just in time too, as the next group of people walked through the void portal. Uncle Kill was the first head to pop through, and unlike the little kitten and the soldiers, he came through with a loud and boisterous laugh. Ha ha ha, that was quite fun. It's been a bit of time since I've experienced a void teleportation. The 4 other people in his group, consisting of the Wilderwolf soldiers and the random magician, couldn't help but look at Uncle Kill's joyful visage with a wry smile on their pale faces. Why do the weak have to suffer so, Artilda? Shape up. You know the teleportation portal to enter the Thunder Mountains will be another void portal, no? The surrounding people's faces paled at Uncle Kill's pitiless revelation. Why you mean I'm going have to suffer through that again? The little kitten lamented with hazy eyes, fear evident in them. I think I might have a new phobia. Cheer up, we'll not be entering the portal straight away. They'll be giving us 4 days to cultivate the external aura at the peak of Thunder Mountain, which will run the area dry for a while, before we enter the void portal again. Jonathan attempted to coax the kitten out of her bitter expression. It didn't work. I'll still have to go through it eventually though. If cats could shed tears, she surely would be at this perilous moment. In time, all of the magicians and magical beasts had passed through the void teleportation portal without any issue. While everyone was adjusting to the new, but familiar environment, Hidden Blade walked over to Mist Step. So how long does this portal last? Hidden Blade asked as he came to a stop in front of Mist Step. It should last 10 days without the need to fuel it with more aura. Mist Step answered, simply. Are we just leaving this portal here? The voice of another carried over. Is that safe? Another worriedly asked as well. Mist Step simply turned to face them with a dull expression. It should be fine. From this point on, there are no magical beasts as the thunder-scaled half-dragons block off their path. So if a magical beast were to go through this portal, they would find themselves without any beasts to hunt for food. They won't disturb us. Hidden Blade spoke up to explain with a wry smile, noticing the slight irritation in Mist Step's gaze at the constant questions. This guy doesn't like speaking much, as always. All right, we're but a short distance away. Let's set off. Mist Step interrupted, not caring about the current conversation. Let's. Hidden Blade nodded. Everyone, we're setting off. From this point on, there should be no magical beasts in our way, so there is no need to walk in groups. Just follow me and Mist Step and we'll arrive at the tip of Thunder Mountain by the end of the day. Joyful cheers resounded as Mist Step began the ascent upwards. Very quickly everyone else followed diligently. Walking in step behind Sky Magicians Mist Step and Hidden Blade, everyone soon began their journey up the final stretch of Thunder Mountain, and as usual, the little kitten laid comfortably in Jonathan's grasp as she cultivated. However, she wasn't making much progress as she still felt a little nauseous from the teleportation earlier. I'm still a long ways from reaching the peak of late stage. Hopefully the aura atop Thunder Mountain will be enough to give me a little push forward. The little kitten thought solemnly as she gazed upwards to see the grey clouds above and the Thunder Mountain peak ahead. Chapter 33, Cake. An irritating and sharp laughter rang out, echoing throughout a small golden room. This room was a very simple place, with only one robust metallic door as an exit. There were no windows, and hovering just centimeters from the far wall of the room were several hologram-like images that showed the ongoing images of various scenes. Upon these monitors, one could see scenes of orange and red trees, cliffs, and other such foliage. In these surroundings were random magical beasts, roaming about and hunting, living their daily lives, while on the center and largest hologram, a familiar sight was displayed upon it. In this screen, the scene of around 100 people trudging their way through the various landscapes could be seen. The most striking aspect of this room was the figure watching these monitors. In the middle of the room, it sat upon some sort of sleek device that floated but just a few centimeters from the floor. It was a smooth, white device that came to a point at the bottom and got gradually wider until it reached the device's top part, where a soft cushion laid upon it. And sitting on this comfortable cushion is the being responsible for the loud, cackling laughter that had just reverberated throughout this golden room. This being was bizarrely transparent and gave a dim azure glow, Its posture was extremely relaxed as it sat upon the hovering device, one knee up with its lanky right hand draped over it. Its body was covered in short red fur and it has a long tail that swings back and forth like the wagging tail of an excited dog. It's nearly time. The transparent monkey-like creature cackles, a mischievous glint in its red eyes. Let's see how I test them this time. Cake. As predicted by the two sky magicians, traveling up the rest of Thunder Mountain proceeded without a hitch and just in time for the sun's descent. The over 100 magicians arrived at their long-awaited destination with ample time. As everyone settled down, Hidden Blade spoke up for the last time, telling everyone to spend the next 4 days diligently in their cultivation. As nobody wanted to waste this chance to experience improvement, people were quick to assume a cross-legged seating position and soon, the scene of many people cultivating with serious expressions could be seen. This amount of external aura is negligible to magicians of our rank. Hidden Blade said as he returned to Mist Step's side. Should we just keep a watch over the surroundings, make sure nothing unexpected happens? Mist Step nodded his agreement. Soon, unnoticed by the surrounding magicians, those two magicians had spread their senses throughout a large area of the Thunder Mountain's peak. Though they did not dare to spread their conscious eye senses too far, lest they aggravate the dormant thunder-scaled half-dragon queen whose location was presently unknown. Meanwhile, those bastards. The monkey-like beast growled, waving one of its fists threateningly. I forgot about this part. Boo-hoo. I'm going to have to wait even longer. Can't they do this part after I've whipped their bums? The aura's not going anywhere. Boo-hoo. As a certain impatient monkey continues row cry its guts out, the little kitten, like everyone else, was diligently cultivating alongside Jonathan, Uncle Kill and the rest of the Wilderwolf soldiers. Amazing, while cultivating in this external aura, the improvement I would see in around 10 minutes can be achieved in just 6 minutes. The little kitten exclaimed in thought. I think, by the end of these 4 days, I might be able to reach the peak of late stage. Possibly. Soon, 4 days passed by like the breeze. Time seemed to pass by in seconds for the cultivating magicians due to the effects of their meditation. Throughout the whole 4 days, every single person didn't dare to waste their chance to improve their cultivation, which was of the greatest importance to any magician and magical beast. The only time they didn't spend cultivating was spent on the daily necessities such as sleep, food, and water. Alright everyone, I'm gonna have to bring this cultivation session to a close here. Hidden Blade's voice awoke everyone from their cultivation and soon, people were stretching their limbs and speaking to each other of their improvements over the last 4 days with excited voices. That's too bad. I feel that I'm so close to making a breakthrough. Jonathan complained in between stretches. Meow. By his side, the little kitten was doing her own stretches as she rose to her 4 little feet. I feel you. Ha ha ha, you little brat. Uncle Kill laughed a laugh that didn't reach his eyes as he grumbled at his nephew. You complain any more about not making a breakthrough to the spirit stage at the age of 16, and everyone around us including myself are gonna be puking blood in anger. Haha, I guess it's too easy to get greedy sometimes. Jonathan laughed his uncle off before turning to face the little kitten by his side and giving her a few pets. How did your cultivation go? Did you reach the peak? Meow. The little kitten nodded with excitement, her long tail wagging back and forth as she leaned into his touch. Now, all I've got to do is make a breakthrough. Good. Jonathan couldn't help but sigh in admiration. This little lass, her cultivation speed isn't ordinary. Her elemental alignment isn't anything too special and she's still green around the edges. But with quick advancement in cultivation and great battle instincts, she's definitely been the most surprising sight throughout this year of adventure, that's for sure. Great, now we'll be puking 2 mouthfuls. Uncle Kill's teeth gritted with mock anger. Sticking around with you 2 brats has warped my view on the younger generation. Everyone else is going to look like wastes compared to your 2's level of improvement. Hee. As usual, Jonathan just laughed him off. The little kitten snorted an audible HMPH as she faced the sky at a 45 degrees angle. Of course, this here ain't no normal cat, old fool. Seeing the little kitten's arrogant pose, Uncle Kill's mouth couldn't help but twitch as he looked at her with narrowed eyes. Why do I feel that I've just been insulted? All right, enough of that. Jonathan laughed before his face turned serious as he turned to face the little kitten once more. Little lass, don't become complacent just because you've reached the peak of late stage. To make a breakthrough between two ranks is a big leap from breaking through stages. You'll see when you start to make your breakthrough attempt. Sadly, no amount of me pouring out information about this will aid you in breaking through ranks. You're just gonna have to rely on your own willpower and temper your mental state. While not fully understanding Jonathan's words, after a few seconds of idleness, the little kitten faced Jonathan with determined eyes. Meow. Good. Jonathan said with a smirk, content with her response. Is everyone ready? Hidden Blade's stoic voice sounded loud at this moment. A series of agreements could be heard in reply before Hidden Blade nodded approvingly. Then, without further ado, let us enter the Thunder Mountain's blessing of the gods. Cake, bloody finally. The red-furred monkey's voice laughed in playful glee. Let this blessed guardian beat you all up. Leaving me waiting 2 years ain't enough, you got me waiting another 4 days? Humph. Just wait to see what I'll do to you lot. Cake. Chapter 34, Entering the Thunder Mountain Ruins. Finally, it was time for the true beginning of the Thunder Mountain hunt. The entrance of the Thunder Mountain ruins stood tall at the peak of the mountain. It was a simply designed, several meters tall door frame, with no actual doors to open. In its stead, was a familiar-looking black abyss. It was a void portal. With all preparations set, there was no hesitation as people began to line up in one long singular row. One by one, people disappeared into that world of darkness to face whatever lied beyond. Eventually, it was Uncle Kill's turn, but before he went, he gave a few words of comfort. All right men, stupid nephew and the little lass. All I ask is that you don't get kicked out with your bare ass flashing and your face a teary mess. Good luck. With a boisterous laugh and a large grin, Uncle Kill leaped into the void portal, leaving everyone who heard him standing with wry smiles at his vulgar words. With a long sigh, Jonathan stood up to enter next while shaking his head. After giving his soldiers some true words of inspiration, he then turned to speak to the little kitten. Good luck, little lass. While this blessing of the gods has only ever had a few casualties, you still need to be careful. The calling bell around your neck won't be able to alert me if anything goes wrong. Meow. The little kitten responded with a resolute meow. Heh, as confident as ever, huh? Jonathan sighed. Then all I can say is be careful. And with that, Jonathan joined in his uncle's wake and entered the void portal with a step. Finally, it was the little kitten's turn, but as she walked up to the portal, she couldn't help but shiver as she got closer to it. Do I really have to experience that again? After a few seconds of hesitation, the little kitten finally shook her head furiously to wake her from her stupor, and with gritted teeth, took a step forward. You. The little kitten awakes to find herself feeling a horrible case of nausea. Everything in her sight is spinning and she has to struggle to not puke out her last meal. This carries on for several seconds before she finally gains some sense of bearing. Where am I? The little kitten groaned in anguish, her small head wobbling as she tried to gain footing. And, how did I get here? The little kitten took this time as she was recovering to examine her surroundings intently, her eyes narrowed in concentration. Pushing through the nausea, she found that she was in a world of pure whiteness. There was nothing to note except, strangely, the fact that the floor acted as a mirror, reflecting her small silver frame back at her. Well, I look as cute as always. The little kitten flaunted brazenly. But that aside, I'm starting to remember things now. If I'm not wrong, I should be inside the Thunder Mountain ruins. The little kitten took a seated position as she continued to study her surroundings after her revelation. So, is this it, just a world of white? First the darkness of the void, now I'm being blinded by a world of white. I'm starting to miss color, even my own fur is monochrome. The little kitten faced downwards to face her reflection and saw her dim greenish-red eyes staring back at her. At least I have my eyes. Wow, they really accentuate my features. As the little kitten was admiring her beauty, a sudden loud, sharp and highly amused laughter broke her out of her moment, even making her jump a few inches off the floor in her fright. Cake. The laughter sounded, grinding her ears and bringing the little kitten's attention to its source. What she saw amazed her, as in front of her was a translucent monkey-like beast that looked somewhat humanoid, yet had short red fur. Its red eyes were squinted in mischief and its irritating laugh seemingly never-ending. "Who's this freak?" the little kitten exclaimed in thought as her front body lowered in a battle stance. She would look menacing if not for her cute appearance of a small, 2 to 3 month old kitten. "Hey, how rude. Who you calling a freak, freak?" The monkey-like beast reprimand, its mouth bloating up in its anger. The freak read my mind, it really is a freak. The little kitten's eyes bulged in terror. Hey, I'll bully you dead. The monkey-like beast warned with an exasperated expression as it pointed shakily at her. Who are you?" the little kitten demanded, baring her teeth as a threat. Cake, are you trying to threaten me, puny cat?" The monkey-like beast's anger dissipated in an instant and began to snicker. What a typical magical beast from the feline family. Feline family? The little kitten queried. And who are you calling puny, freak? You don't even know about the magical beast families? How interesting. Puny cat, let me analyze you a little. The monkey-like beast's red eyes suddenly lit a glow at this moment in a bright glow. In response to the monkey-like beast's glowing eyes, the little kitten suddenly had a feeling of déjà vu. She experienced the familiar feeling of an invisible eye prodding her body's inner workings. It was the same feeling when the sky magicians, Hidden Blade and Miststep had used their conscious eye on her and the rest of them a few days prior. Except, the little kitten could somehow feel that this monkey-like beast could examine her at a much deeper and fundamental level. This pervert, get your prodding sight out of me, the little kitten hissed with puffed cheeks. Quiet, I need to concentrate. The monkey-like beast sneered back. Eventually, the monkey-like beast's glowing red eyes dimmed to its usual luster and an O expression appeared on its face as soon as it did. How interesting, never would I thought I'd see something like you in this small world. What's that sup to mean? The little kitten asked with narrowed eyes. Cake, like I'd tell you, puny cat. The monkey-like beast stuck out its tongue, taunting the little kitten. Before the little kitten could growl back, the monkey-like beast spoke once more, interrupting her. Okay. Don't get all emotional on me, I'll stop the bullying for a few seconds. Cake. The monkey-like beast said with a smirk. But still, I think it's better for you to wait a little longer until you learn more of your origins. There's a reason your knowledge is capped off, after all. My knowledge is capped off. The little kitten exhaled. What does that mean? Cake, you want to know her? The monkey-like beast grinned tauntingly. How about this puny cat, if you pass my trial, beyond the usual reward, if you impress me enough, I'll also add on some information about who you are. Trial? The little kitten studied the monkey-like beast in deep thought. Wait, who are you anyway? Why are you in the Thunder Mountain ruins? Oh, me. The monkey-like beast's eyes lit up in an excited gleam. Obviously, he had been waiting for this question for a while now. With a large grin, the monkey-like beast stuck out its chest and spoke in a prideful tone. Cake, I am the guardian spirit of this blessing of the gods. In other words, I am but a humble artificial being. At your service. Chapter 35, The Guardian Spirit's Bully Trial begins. An artificial being? The little kitten exclaimed with wide eyes. Really? The monkey-like beast only nodded smugly in response as the little kitten looked on with a shocked expression. What's an artificial being? The little kitten's head tilted innocently. What? The monkey-like beast's smug expression couldn't help but fault. Why you? You really are a headache, puny cat. Now listen up, let this guardian spirit clear things up for you. How arrogant, a girl doesn't know one thing and you act like it's the end of the world. The little kitten gnashed her teeth in irritation. Now. Stop yapping and listen. The monkey-like beast waved her off, getting used to her sassy comments by now. Artificial beings are intelligent forms created by living entities. They can be very low in intelligence, or they can be so intelligent they put human geniuses to shame, like me. points smugly at himself, getting dagger eyes in response from the little kitten. Asterisk cough asterisk, asterisk cough star. Okay, the important thing is, I'm a creation of a higher power that has been created in order to watch over this blessing of the god. Ah, so not only are you a freak. You're a designed freak. The little kitten nodded seriously. Why you? The guardian spirit clenched his teeth, and if he wasn't already a red-furred creature, his face would be a crimson red. But eventually his boiling anger calmed down as he let out a long sigh instead of a vocal tirade. Enough, enough. We don't have time to argue all day. As the guardian spirit here, it is my job to put every visitor to this place under a trial. So, why the long conversation then? Couldn't you just send us straight into the trial? The little kitten asked curiously. Cake. I usually do. Except, I found you to be odd, beyond your personality, and wanted to investigate you a little. Currently, my being has been split into several clones, with each one looking over a single person's trial each. Except, only a few are lucky enough to pique my interest enough for me to make a personal appearance. The guardian spirit spoke with an arrogant smirk. You should be honored, puny cat. Tay, more like disgusted. The little kitten tutted mockingly. Holding back his anger, the guardian spirit continued. All right, enough then. Let's see how arrogant you are after dealing with my trial. Suddenly, the guardian spirit vanished in a flash of azure light. The brightness of this light blinded the little kitten for several seconds. When her eyes opened once more, she found to her shock that the environment around her had completely transformed in those few seconds when they were closed. Instead of a world of white, the little kitten found herself in a long hallway. This hallway was immaculately designed and several meters wide, and when the little kitten looked upwards, she found that the walls seemed to curve in a whimsical manner into the horizon, the presumed roof lost in the fog of the horizon. The most striking aspect of this new environment, to the little kitten's irritation, were several paintings littering the walls of the guardian spirit standing and sitting in various eccentric poses. There was one painting with the guardian spirit standing like an old gentleman with a walking stick, one where he is sitting in a sexual manner across a silk-covered bed, and even one where he held his fingers in an L while sticking his tongue out. In conclusion, any pose imaginable could be seen at every turn. Is this trial a test to see if I won't vomit my guts out in disgust? The little kitten's mouth twitched in vexation. Because I think I might fail horribly. There was no reply for a long time before the sound of a loud growl suddenly resounded throughout the long, whimsical hallway. Frightened, the little kitten automatically assumed a battle stance. The trial has begun. This thought instantly came to her and she reacted immediately. A second later, her enchantingly nice-sounding voice sang out in a chant. An azure glow coalesced around her lean body and took form in seconds, taking on the shape of a sleek and strong-looking silver armor. It was the Ravager armor. In the meantime, the little kitten had yet to notice any motion as she surveyed her surroundings with rapt attention. Where is the enemy? It was only moments after this thought that she suddenly felt all of her fur spike up to its fullest length. Though low-level magicians and magical beasts didn't have the senses of someone at the spirit rank who had the power of their conscious eyes, most people at her level still had an innate sense for magic in a small area around them. Only, it would pale in comparison to the senses the conscious eye allow. But in this instance, this sense worked perfectly, and now that she was alerted, the little kitten reacted without delay. Her small paws cracked the ground beneath her as she leapt with full strength, shooting forward several meters, just escaping the threat of the unknown assailant as it struck from above. Bang! A dust cloud struck up in the area where the little kitten once stood, blocking the little kitten's vision of it as she came to a stop and turned to face her enemy. That cloud of dust had yet to dissipate when a blurred shadow rocketed out of it, straight towards the little kitten. As she watched the quickly moving attacker, her eyes shot up in attention before narrowing in concentration. Too slow. The little kitten harumphed arrogantly as her right paw rose from the ground, and with quick movements she was already attacking before that blurred shadow could reach her. The little kitten's delicate voice sung out once more in a familiar chant, and at the same time, white lines began to form above her flowing right paw. The little kitten's old friend, the celestial claw, was being unleashed. 4 white lines shot out as the little kitten's right paw finished its arc. The celestial claw cut forth and struck that blurred shadow within seconds. The blurred shape's high-pitched death throes resounded before the sound of flesh hitting solid as the mysterious beast tumbled on the floor unceremoniously. When the beast's tumbling came to a stop, the little kitten finally saw the shape of her assailant. This beast was an about 1.5 meters tall, voracious-looking rabbit-like creature. Its long ears were pointed, and on the beast's forehead were horns that swerved backwards to point to the sky. It had sharp claws that looked as if they could pierce rock and shark-like teeth, its canines especially sharp like a vampire. Cake, impressive indeed. The guardian spirit laughed as it talked to himself, its furry hand clutching its jaw in thought. Strangely, the guardian beast was shockingly sitting on its hovering seat right beside the little kitten, its eyes moving between her and the beast she had just struck down. To be able to strike down a late-stage minor beast with one strike, her level of understanding of that claw spell must be quite high. She might be able to perform the spell chant less soon, even. The guardian spirit nodded approvingly. I can also see that her defensive spell has also reached a high level. If I remember correctly, this spell should be the widely known Ravager Armor. It may be a common spell for metal and earth elemental magical beasts and magicians, but it can be quite formidable with the right amount of insight into it. It looks like she has formed a Ravager armor with a little more than 40% of metal formed into it. However, what was most formidable about her confrontation with the horned cloud rabbit was her battle instinct. Forming a defense as quickly as possible and then attacking at the most optimal moment, far enough that the horned cloud rabbit couldn't reach her with an attack, but also close enough that it wouldn't be able to react in time to dodge such a fast-acting attack. How formidable. This is bound to be fun. Cake. Now that I've prodded her potential, it's time for the it's time for this trial to truly commence. Cake. Chapter 36, 1 vs 5, 1. Was that it? The little kitten asked incredulously. No, there must be more. Her eyes narrowed in concentration as she surveyed the hallway ahead. Seeing that nothing had happened for a short while, the little kitten was about to walk ahead when suddenly she heard several whistling noises descending from above. She didn't sense the appearance of these new intruders due to them arriving several meters away from her, landing from above with a loud bang. Dust clouds covered the little kitten's view of them, but as she examined these new intruders, she quickly counted that there were a grand total of 5 of them, to her dismay. I'm expected to fight 5 enemies. The little kitten's eyes widened in shock. Ivy only ever thought 1-on-1 thanks to Jonathan's intervening. The little kitten gritted her teeth before exhaling out loud. There's no choice, that freak's got info on my origins. There's no way I'm letting this chance slip me by. Soon enough, the dust clouds were whisked away by the peaceful breeze and beastly red eyes were the first thing the little kitten could see of her enemy. She wasn't surprised to find these to be the same beast that she had just struck down moments ago. Strangely, the 5 rabbit-like beasts stood still, their forms breathing, but looking lifelessly towards the little kitten. Before the little kitten could study their curious states further, a familiar and annoyingly high-pitched voice sounded out, grating her ears. Cake. You did well to kill an enemy of the same level as you in one hit. The guardian spirit began. But, how well can you do against 5 of them at the same level? Cake, if you defeat these 5 horned cloud rabbits, there will be only 2 more steps to go until you complete your trial. There's still 2 more steps to go after this. The little kitten exclaimed in disbelief. Damn it, when he shows his red *SS in front of me again, I'm going to bite his tail off. Good luck Tilda. The guardian spirit's voice faded out in a tune. In sync with the guardian spirit's farewell, the little kitten noticed that these so-called horned cloud rabbits seemed to come to life. Low growls escaped from their throats and they all began to walk cautiously towards her menacingly. With a long sigh, the little kitten put all irrelevant thoughts to the back of her head and her eyes narrowed in concentration once more. Oh well, there's only one thing to do now. With gritted teeth, the little kitten's claws extended to their fullest reach and her throat produced a low and menacing hiss as she stared down the closest horned cloud rabbit. Seemingly triggered by her display of hostility, that closest horned cloud rabbit let out a shrill cry before it madly dashed forward, its white furred limbs a blur of movement. At the same time as it ran forward, it also began to chant a short spell. Seeing this, the little kitten's pupils contracted as she noticed a white sheen cover the horned cloud rabbit. At the same time, the rabbit's speed saw a drastic increase as it moved so fast it seemed to almost breach the speed of sound. Wind. The little kitten immediately understood that the horned cloud rabbit was using some sort of wind spell to quicken its movement and sharpen itself for some sort of full frontal tackle. Let's see how nimble you truly are. The guardian spirit's invisible form smirked in thought as he watched the upcoming confrontation. Gotta dodge. The little kitten exclaimed as her 4 limbs went into overdrive, aura circulated to her 4 paws and her body twisted to leap out of the way of the oncoming horned cloud rabbit's tackle. The sound of a sharp object cutting metal screeched, and the little kitten felt a heavy force land on her left side just before she could fully dodge out of the way. Just as she was getting out of the range of the horned cloud rabbit's tackle, the rabbit beast's claws had struck her maliciously, digging into the metal armor that shields her body. Luckily for the little kitten, the Ravager armor held strong and she was simply pushed a good distance from her attacker, only suffering a bruise from the force of the claw's strike. Before the little kitten could get comfy, however, another horned cloud rabbit was pouncing at her, both of his claws outstretched and prepared to strike down at her small form. Damn it! The little kitten's teeth clenched shut. There's no time to dodge. In this hopeless situation, the little kitten's eyes suddenly lit up with a determined gleam and she quickly chanted a spell hastily. Before she could finish the chant completely, the horned cloud rabbit's 2 claws dug into her Ravager armor, yet the little kitten's determined eyes failed to falter and she pushed on, completing the chant. Swish. Blood sprayed from both the little kitten and the horned cloud rabbit. The little kitten cried out in pain as the enemy's vicious claws sunk into her skin. However, the claws only dug in an inch before the horned cloud rabbit's eyes suddenly turned dull and blood sprayed from its forehead, where now a deadly slit appeared. It was the work of the sky-piercing arrow. As the little kitten recovered from the previous exchange, she suddenly felt the presence of 2 attackers behind her. Reacting quickly, she chanted another spell, as the sky-piercing arrow had traveled too far to react in time. The little kitten unleashed the second spell from the Dance of the Flames art, Wandering Glow. As her body twisted to face the 2 attackers, a flame sparked into life beside her, glowing in an orange glow. It appeared as a long flaming snake. This snake was as thick as a person's arm and a little over a meter in length. With rapid speed, the Wandering Glow spell sprung forward and swiped at the 2 horned cloud rabbits who failed to react in time. The orange snake struck the 2 horned cloud rabbits in their chest area, causing them to feel a painful burning sensation that singed their white fur. After striking the 2 beasts in the chest, the Wandering Glow spell lingered there, radiating a powerful heat that forced the 2 horned cloud rabbits to retreat backwards, lest they suffer further burns. While the Wandering Glow spell returned to the little kitten to hover beside her, the little kitten was quick to order her sky-piercing arrow to strike forth at one of the 2 horned cloud rabbits that were in retreat. Unable to dodge the sky-piercing arrow's frightening speed, the beast became the second horned cloud rabbit to fall in this fight. At this point, the little kitten was beginning to breath heavily as the sky-piercing arrow returned to her side. Meanwhile, the other horned cloud rabbits began to encircle her, eyes full of malicious intent. The little kitten took this time to analyze the previous exchange. The Wandering Glow and the sky-piercing arrow are a good combination, it seems. With the sky-piercing arrow's frightening speed and strong piercing ability making a strong and deadly attack, while the Wandering Glow spell is great for defense, burning the opponent and forcing them to retreat upon contact. To fight this many opponents, it would seem this is the best method I have at hand. Only, I have already used up a lot of aura to maintain these 3 spells and keep them active. I'll have to end this quickly, lest I run out of aura and fail this trial. I can't fail on only the second part. I can't mess up this chance to find out what that freak knows about me. Chapter 37, 1 vs 5, 2. The sky-piercing arrow flew at max speed as it darted towards one of the 3 remaining horned cloud rabbits. Unfortunately, the arrow just missed its target as the beast chanted the same wind elemental spell as before and dashed out of the arrow's trajectory. Meanwhile, the Wandering Glow spell also went into action once more as one of the other horned cloud rabbits charged at the little kitten with bared fangs. With the threat of the burning orange snake swerving into its path, The beast growled in a frustrated manner as it darted off into another direction, not daring to take on the heat of that flaming snake. These horned rabbits are so swift, it's a wonder I was able to kill those first two. The little kitten hissed in frustration. It's as if these buggers are learning from the first two and learning how to avoid my attacks. Damn red-furred freak, making these horned rabbits so realistic. As the seconds turned into minutes, the little kitten's frustration grew in intensity as the 3 horned cloud rabbits got better and better at avoiding her sky-piercing arrow, and after nearly 5 minutes of this, one of them even sneaked by her wandering glow spell and struck her with a head-on tackle that sent her tumbling several meters. After reaching the end of her tumble, the little kitten dug her claws into the solid floor to maintain her standing figure, preventing her weakened legs from collapsing. In the middle of readjusting her state, she then found herself in further danger as a swiftly moving horned cloud rabbit was charging at her from nearby, soon to be in range to strike her with its nasty claws. Gritting her teeth, the little kitten concentrated her aura in the wandering glow spell and ordered it to intercept the attacking horned cloud rabbit. To the little kitten's shock, the horned cloud rabbit did not retreat when the wandering glow spell threatened to strike it, and instead swiftly leapt into the air over the flaming snake and was quickly in range of the little kitten. "It's not so easy to strike me down, damn rabbit," the little kitten hissed as she shockingly formed 4 familiar white claws over her right paw, all without the need for a chant. However, these 4 claws were obviously unstable and smoky aura seemed to seep out of them wastefully. The little kitten didn't care about her aura wasting away, however, as the dire situation necessitated it, and without further delay, the little kitten's right paw swiped diagonally upwards, causing the celestial claw spell to go charging forth in all its glory. Unsuspecting of this desperate and swift attack, the horned cloud rabbit was helpless in the air as it was struck with the deadly blow. Blood sprayed from 4 newly formed wounds as the celestial claw dug quite far into the beast's skin, and by the time the horned cloud rabbit tumbled to the floor, its small artificial life had already come to a bloody end. Only 2 more to go. The little kitten's eyes glittered with confidence and her tail wagged back and forth in excitement. How interesting. While she had to sacrifice a bunch of aura and the end result was a little shabby, she was still able to conjure the celestial claw spell without the need to chant. She's been really blessed, it would seem. The guardian spirit thought mysteriously as he looked on at the little kitten who was in the middle of a game of cat and mouse with her remaining 2 enemies, though it's more like cat and rabbits. Cake, though in the end, it's still her own insight that has allowed her to come this far, so it can't all be attributed to that. As the sky-piercing arrow chased one of the horned cloud rabbits, the little kitten was also in a scramble against the other horned cloud rabbit, her wandering glow spell always on the move to intercept the beast's swift attacks. Like before, this attacking horned cloud rabbit was learning with every exchange, and the little kitten could tell that soon the beast was going to be able to launch beyond her outer defense, the wandering glow spell, and be able to attack her with its vicious claws, or even its vampire-like teeth. How annoying. The little kitten spat as she quickly moved into action once more. The celestial claw spell was activated once more. Its unstable form flickered to life and was rocketing towards the horned cloud rabbit. Yet, to the little kitten's shock, the horned cloud rabbit seemed to predict this attack and swiftly maneuvered around those 4 white blades. As the celestial claw spell flew off into the distance, coming to dissipate into nothingness a dozen meters away, the horned cloud rabbit maintained its momentum, its furry right leg digging into the wooden floor and launching itself at the wide-eyed silver kitten. However, things weren't as desperate as they may have seemed, and this became clear when the little kitten's initially wide-open eyes suddenly narrowed and took on an excited gleam. Swish! The horned cloud rabbit that was attacking the kitten had failed to notice in its fervor that the kitten had long redirected the flying arrow to return to her position. The horned cloud rabbit had no time in its last second, even when it had noticed its mistake, when the sky-piercing arrow struck it in the side of its head, piercing right into it with the winged end hanging out. Ha, it worked. The little kitten thought in delight. Yet, despite her enthusiasm, she was now beginning to breath heavily and her paws felt weak. I've used too much aura. The horned cloud rabbit that was just struck dead fell to the ground, twitching a few times before coming to an eternal still. The metallic arrow that jutted out of its head suddenly began to dissipate, vanishing into dust. At the same time of the sky-piercing arrow's dissipation, The wandering glow spell soon followed suit as its corporeal form warped into flames that were quickly whisked away into nothingness as well. Finally, the metallic armor around the little kitten's body, the Ravager armor, also began to see some changes. Despite not fully vanishing, a large chunk of it had narrowed to a finer thickness. The armor did not look nearly as formidable as it once did so before. Meanwhile, the final horned cloud rabbit seemed to notice these changes and quickly charged at its weakened foe, not willing to give her the chance to recover for even a second. Just 1 more to go. The little kitten thought with gritted teeth. Her 4 limbs were trembling in place, exhaustion bogged her body down, the result of overusing her aura. Inside of the little kitten's body, her inner haven was producing a pitiful amount of aura, the biggest contributor to her current state. The more aura one draws from their inner haven in a small period of time, the more they will stress the inner haven until it eventually ends up producing aura at a very slow rate, only to recover after a long rest or with certain items. The charging horned cloud rabbit gained on her in seconds due to the effects of its wind elemental spell, and yet the little kitten remained still, looking as if it was a miracle that she was even still standing. Yet her eyes held unwavering determination. I ain't losing to no stinking rabbit. In those last few seconds before the horned cloud rabbit would reach her, these were the words the little kitten exclaimed as she used the last remnants of her flowing aura. Her beautiful voice rang out in a harmonious chant as the now very familiar celestial claw spell came into form once more. Due to her dwindling aura and having the time to sing out the spell's chant, the little kitten chose not to use the spell chant less. She needed to pull out all of her remaining strength for this final attack. She couldn't afford to hold anything back. Otherwise, she doesn't have the confidence that she would have the remaining strength to attack the horned cloud rabbit any further. As her final attack was sent into action, most of her aura went with it and she instantly felt her body and mind become numb. Her eyes rolled backwards and her vision blurred until all that she could see was darkness. In her final moments of consciousness, her last memories were of a loud pained cry, seemingly from the horned cloud rabbit, before she suddenly felt a heavy weight smash into her small form. And then, all became nothingness as unconsciousness took hold of her. Chapter 38, Vitality Potion. The first thing the little kitten noticed when she awoke once more, was that she was feeling surprisingly healthy, despite the consequences that burning out one's aura should bring. The little kitten's hazy eyes closed as she used her subconscious eye to survey her inner haven. To her shock, she found that her inner haven was producing aura at a steady rate, as if she had never exhausted it just moments ago. What happened? The little kitten couldn't help but ask this question to herself as her feline eyes opened in shock. Was it the freak? You're really asking for a beating, puny cat. The sudden words of a familiar voice shocked the little kitten at its presence and she turned to find the red-furred, translucent guardian spirit sitting upon its usual hovering device. Its head rested in its hands as its narrowed eyes studied the little kitten for a few seconds before a dark grin appeared on the guardian spirit's face, seemingly pleased with the kitten's shocked reaction. Freak, what happened? Did I fail? The little kitten asked apprehensively. Her mind was in chaos as she asked this question through her thoughts, fearing that she had already failed to pass this trial and lost the chance to learn about that which she has been wondering about ever since she had arrived in this new world. Cake, you really want to know? The guardian spirit teased with a mocking grin. Freak. The little kitten hissed, not amused. Cake, okay. I'll tell you, so stop your whining. The guardian spirit laughed irritatingly, but the little kitten just looked on with cold eyes, turning his smile wry. All right, you passed. I did. The little kitten exclaimed happily, her eyes gleaming in excitement. How though? My mind goes blank just as I was going to fight against the last of those rabbit beasts. I remember hearing it scream. So I must have hit it. But I also remember feeling a great weight hit me just as I lost consciousness. That sounds about right. The guardian spirit nodded its head as it went into thought before speaking up once more. Your final celestial claw spell managed to kill the final horned cloud rabbit just as it was about to reach you. Unfortunately, its dead body continued on its trajectory and smashed into you, knocking you out for good. If I were to stretch the rules, I could call the match a draw. But in the end, it was the horned cloud rabbit who fell first, so I'll give you the win this time. Heh! To have only won in the last few seconds. How pitiful. The little kitten sighed. Do you realize what you need to learn for next time? The guardian spirit inquired with a grin. The funny thing about this guardian spirit was that even his good-natured grins were irritating, and the little kitten fought back the feeling to strike him for no reason with all her strength every time she saw it. The little kitten nodded seriously in reply without hesitation. I need to learn how to conserve my aura better so that I don't exhaust myself out too early in the battle, especially in battles that are going to be drawn out like group battles. Correct. The guardian spirit smirked and said in reply. In that last battle, your control over your aura was truly weak, wasting much more aura than needed to keep your 3 spells afloat for much longer. Instead of those around 10 minutes that you achieved in that match, you could probably conserve your aura enough for probably 15 minutes, or maybe even more. I see now. The little kitten nodded enthusiastically. She would definitely spend time to find a way to improve her ability to control her aura in a much more efficient way. It was at this point that the little kitten also remembered something else that she found strange. Oh yeah. Freak, how have I already recovered? Shouldn't my aura be exhausted? Oh, That's simple. I used one of these babies. The guardian spirit flipped his right hand upwards with a flick, and suddenly upon his open palm a peculiar bottle now stood. This bottle wasn't that tall, only around 10 centimeters. The bottle was fully made of glass and was elongated at the bottom, curving inwards as it reached the glass bottle's lid. Inside the bottle, a light-colored violet liquid wobbled with the guardian spirit's slight movements. Whoa, what's that? The little kitten asked instinctively before she seemed to come to an understanding. Is that one of those magical potions? Indeed. The guardian spirit responded while flipping the potion bottle into the air. As the bottle fell from the air, the guardian spirit's right hand waved past it, covering the bottle from the kitten's view for the smallest of moments. Yet in that small moment, when less than a second had passed, that bottle had vanished from her sight. The little kitten's mouth twitched in an irritated manner at the over-exaggerated display of removing the bottle as the guardian spirit moved on, seemingly not bothered by the kitten's sullen expression. I fed you a strong dull rank vitality potion. Vitality potions are one of the most basic of potions a medicinal magician can make and will aid in a person's restoration of both their aura and body. Because it aids in both fields, it is usually weaker than getting either an aura recovery potion or a body recovery potion. But they are also cheaper, and my potions are quite strong, so they did well to heal you up enough at your weak level. Why punctuate that last part? The little kitten hissed, but the guardian spirit simply laughed her anger off as it suddenly turned to face down the long corridor ahead of them. The little kitten looked to where it turned to look, but could see nothing and turned her gaze back to look at the guardian spirit oddly. The guardian spirit didn't bother with her inquisitive gaze and simply stated, "Head along this corridor and you will naturally know when the second step of your trial has begun." With no further words, the guardian spirit vanished from the little kitten's view in a hasty fashion. The little kitten sat there dully for a moment before shaking her fur. With a low exhale, the little kitten finally took soft steps forward. After several minutes, while the little kitten was absorbed in her disgust of the ever-growing repertoire of paintings on the corridor walls of the guardian spirit, a change in the horizon caught her attention. She was at the end of the corridor, and there was nothing except a wall with a few more paintings. Is this it? The kitten asked sullenly as she walked up to the far wall. Just as she was a few steps from the wall and was studying it intently, the little kitten suddenly felt the floor beneath her rumble with a small quake. And then to her shock, the floor opened up due to the power of some grand contraption. Meow. The sound of a cat's long yell echoed throughout the corridor and downwards into the horizon of the tunnel beneath the trapdoor as the little kitten fell straight downwards at full velocity. You damned freak! The little kitten exclaimed hatefully in her mind. The irritating sound of a loud laughter that rang out with the sound of cake could be heard as the little kitten saw the trapdoor above her close up and her view was succumbed by the darkness of the seemingly endless tunnel. Chapter 39, The Steel-Shelled Turtle, 1. Meow. The little kitten's cries lasted a long while until finally, the little kitten felt a force pushing against her falling form, pushing against her and slowing her fall down of the seemingly never-ending tunnel. Is this a spell? The little kitten asked herself as she felt herself being eased downwards at a gentle and almost comforting pace. Eventually, as she looked beneath her, she saw an opening in the tunnel leading to a well-lit room. In seconds, her slowly falling form reached that room's vicinity and she could finally gauge her new surroundings. This was a rather small space compared to the corridor before. The room was around 50 cubic meters and was made all out of a marble-like material. On the walls were a few simple lit torches. All of these aspects of the room were simply background to the most eye-catching aspect of the room, which was a rather large, around 10-meter wide turtle-like beast that lay dormant at the other end of the room. This turtle magical beast had a large, solid-looking metallic shell that held a soft azure glint. Its 4 limbs that protruded out of its shell were rather bulbous and its head glared intently at the newly arriving kitten with narrowed, threatening eyes. Cree. The turtle magical beast let out a long, ear-piercing screech at the little kitten. The little kitten tried to block her ears with her 2 front paws clumsily as the turtle's piercing screech continued on until it finally died down, in time with her paws landing softly on the marble-like floor beneath. So, I guess this is my opponent for the second part in my trial, huh? The little kitten softly exhaled as her eyes studied the beast opposite her intently. Compared to this giant of a beast, her normally small form seemed even more tiny in comparison and she gulped involuntarily. This is going to be a difficult one, isn't it? Of course, I've gotta increase the ante from the last test. Cake. The guardian spirit's voice echoed around the small room. A second later, a red form materialized out of thin air in front of the silver kitten. So what is this turtle beast? The little kitten asked as her sight moved from the newly arrived figure of the guardian spirit and back to the now strangely silently still turtle-like magical beast. That, my friend, is the steel-shelled turtle. A simple, but apt name. This beast is of the metal element and its shell is permanently formed by metal. I'm not going to tell you any more than that. The guardian spirit explained with a lazy drawl. This test has been excruciatingly planned by myself to act against some of the weaknesses I have seen from your previous battle. So good luck. And like that, the guardian spirit vanished once more, leaving an astounded kitten behind. The little kitten didn't even get time to process the guardian spirit's words when the steel-shelled turtle's loud screech echoed through the room once more. It had seemingly awoken from its previously paused state. Right into it, huh? The little kitten smiled wryly. Oh well, who need time to think? The steel-shelled turtle was the first to act as it suddenly began to sing out a chant in a low, gruff voice that held a menacing air. The little kitten watched intently as she sang out a chant of her own, forming the Ravager armor over her lean form. By the time the Ravager armor came to fully form around her, the steel-shelled turtle's own chant completed. When its chant ended and the spell went off, the little kitten was shocked to feel a rumble beneath her before a set of spikes suddenly sprung out directly under her. These spikes shone with a metallic shine and looked extremely sharp. If she were to be pierced by these spikes, there was no question that they could pierce through her armor. With clenched teeth, the little kitten leapt with all her strength into the air, managing to dodge those metallic spikes as they jutted out to full length, reaching around a full meter or 2 in length. That would pierce straight through my body. The little kitten gulped as her soft paws landed back of the marble floor from her small flight. Yet, the little kitten was shocked once more when she noticed more spikes forming beneath her once more. But it didn't chant. Is this all one spell? The little kitten grumbled as she clambered away to safety once more. Looking at those metallic spikes behind her as they shoot out to stab nothing but air, the little kitten then turned her small head to the first set of spikes, only to find that they seemed to have dug back into the earth in the direction of the new set of spikes. Oh! Does that mean that those new spikes were the same spikes from before? The little kitten came to this understanding, and as she watched those spikes, she found her theory to be confirmed when she saw those spikes curve and pierce into the ground. Soon, it would probably attempt to strike her once more. As the little kitten dodged another attack from the metallic spikes, she suddenly let out a loud angry hiss. I can't just let this damned turtle keep chasing me with those bloody spikes. Take this. The little kitten sang a chant, and thereafter, a celestial claw spell was quickly propelled forth, striking into the long snake-like metallic spike. However, the little kitten was displeased to find that her spell did nothing but leave a hollow scar in the metal. It would take several attempts with precise aim to cut through this spike spell. Damn it! The little kitten cursed. But her thoughts were interrupted by the familiar rumble beneath her feet. The spikes. Leaping into safety once more, the little kitten turned her attention to the steel-shelled turtle, which was glaring at her with bloodthirsty eyes. If I can't cut through your metal, then I'll just go directly to the source. The little kitten growled in thought as she sent off a chantless celestial claw attack. Can't give it time to dodge. Screech. The sound of the celestial claw spell arcing through the air. Soon, 4 white lines of aura were threatening down upon the steel-shelled turtle. In response to this threat, the steel-shelled turtle let out a shrill screech before suddenly its head and 4 limbs retracted into its metal shell. Its actions didn't end there though, as shockingly, a metallic surface closed up those open gaps in its shell, fully covering the beast inside. What? The little kitten's eyes opened up in alarm. This. The celestial claw struck the metallic shell where the steel-shelled turtle's head should have been, but only ended up cutting up 4 shallow claw marks in its metallic shell. My celestial claw spell is useless like this. The little kitten thought in despair. The worst part was that the steel-shelled turtle now refused to leave its shell, simply opening the front gap of its shell so that it could see its prey. With its glaring eyes keeping a watchful gaze on her, the beast continued to send those metallic spikes after her. The little kitten dodged another attack before charging into the turtle's left side, to an area where the turtle couldn't see her. Now, it'll probably have to take out its arms and legs to move and find me. The little kitten's eyes gleamed in satisfaction. And when it does, that's when I'll strike. The plan would have went well, if only the steel-shelled turtle had reacted like the kitten had thought. Is it really just going to lie there? The little kitten cried sullenly. As the little kitten watched on, prepped to strike, the steel-shelled turtle just simply stayed still, not moving a single muscle. Okay then, let's try this. The little kitten sang out a chant once more. This time, she summoned the power of the sky-piercing arrow. The sky-piercing power has a much stronger penetration power than the celestial claw spell. Maybe this can pierce through this turtle's damn shell. Gritting her teeth, the little kitten ordered her sky-piercing arrow forth. The metallic arrow charged forth at great speed, whistling through the air in an arc. Bang! The sound of metal striking metal. Yet, the sky-piercing arrow simply bounced off the steel-shelled turtle's metallic shell, resulting in only a small shard being cut off. Heh! As I thought, it's not enough. The little kitten looked on with a sullen expression. What can I do? She was currently at a stalemate. With her being unable to damage her enemy and her enemy not taking the risk to move itself so it can attack her. The silence in the room was broken by the guardian spirit who suddenly spoke up. Cake, I wouldn't sit there twiddling with your non-existent thumbs. This test will now have a 5-minute time limit. Good luck. Time limit. The corner of the little kitten's mouth twitched. I've used all the attacks I can. The wandering glow will do nothing to it either. It's way too small to burn through its thick shell. Also, this beast has got to be a major magical beast. And probably a mid-stage one or higher as well. The little kitten let out a long, pained sigh as her brain got to work, thinking of her few options. The only positive she could find so far was that the beast was giving her plenty of time. Chapter 40, Steel-Shelled Turtle, 2. Would that work? The little kitten's eyes suddenly lit up with an excited gleam, though there was also an apparent apprehensive look to them as well. Could the sky-piercing bolt pierce through this beast's shell? The sky-piercing bolt was the second spell of the arrow-shattering Sky Art's first stage, the foundation stage. As its name suggests, instead of crafting an arrow, the sky-piercing bolt produces a bolt like one would find being used with crossbows. While the sky-piercing arrow relies on its swiftness and sharpness, the sky-piercing bolt is known for its powerful strength and piercing ability. If any of her known attacks were going to get her through this conundrum, it would be this spell. The only problem was that she had not yet gotten around to training in this spell yet. Her only solace is that the sky-piercing bolt is akin to the sky-piercing arrow spell in design and construct, and that it is also a late-stage minor rank spell. Being a metal elemental spell, which is her most aligned element, the chances of her learning the sky-piercing bolt spell in such a short amount of time wasn't too outrageous a task. She could only try. Let me first search my memories and see what I can remember about what the arrow-shattering Sky Art's Echo Stone taught me about the sky-piercing bolt. After spending several seconds reminiscing, the little kitten's closed eyes opened with a confident gleam. I can do this. The little kitten slowly exhaled before her eyes turned serious and her feline mouth opened to sing a new chant, similar to the sky-piercing arrow spell, but also unique to itself as well. Soon, across from the little kitten, a hovering glob of metal formed in the air. Quite quickly, that glob of metal elongated into a small pole, only around 20 inches in length. At its furthest point, the pole came to a sharp point and at the end closest to the kitten, delicate little metal wings formed on the bolt's end. Compared to the wings on the sky-piercing arrow which were like angel's wings, the wings for the sky-piercing bolt were sharper and held a more menacing air. Nice, the construction is perfect. The little kitten exclaimed in delight. Now then, let me see how powerful you are, sky-piercing bolt. The sky-piercing bolt curved upwards before shooting forward with tremendous velocity, heading straight in the direction of the still steel-shelled turtle. In seconds, the metallic bolt reached its target and a loud, cracking sound resounded throughout the small, white room. The little kitten's greenish-red eyes lit up in excitement as the sky-piercing bolt pierced into the steel-shelled turtle's hard shell, digging straight through and disappearing in a spurt of crimson blood as the bolt proceeded to pierce into the turtle beast's body that laid inside. Ha ha, it worked. It worked. The little kitten cheered with a few joyful hops. The sky-piercing bolt is so powerful. Meanwhile, the steel-shelled turtle was recoiling in pain as its mouth gaped open to let out a long drawn-out shrill cry of pain. For the first time since the beast first retracted its body parts into its shell, the beast's long head shot out of the shell's front gap and twisted to face the offender of its pain. The little kitten gritted her teeth as she glared back at the turtle who was currently throwing daggers her way through its glaring eyes as it shrieked at her. Then, the turtle took time out of its shrieking cries to sing a chant. The little kitten noticed that this was a different chant from the spell it had cast before and became vigilant as she awaited for the steel-shelled turtle's upcoming action, ready to react in whatever way was needed. When the steel-shelled turtle's chant came to an end, an azure glow began to brighten its eyes and its mouth began to bloat. Is it about to spit something out of its mouth? The little kitten asked instinctively upon seeing this scene, and she leant her small body low, ready to pounce away and dodge whatever this beast was about to throw her way. Gruera. The steel-shelled turtle's croaky voice bellowed outwards in an ear-shattering growl as a deep azure glow converged around its gaping mouth. That azure glow suddenly took on a silver sheen before shooting out of the beast's mouth in a terrifying beam of azure-silver light. That silver-azure beam shot straight at the little kitten who looked at the upcoming threat dumbly. "Hey! Beam!" The little kitten exclaimed in fright as her small legs got to work, cracks forming under them as she leapt out of the beam's trajectory in haste. Yet, despite avoiding that beam of silver-azure light, she was unable to fully escape the after-effects caused by this attack that descended upon the spot where she once stood. When that silver-azure beam of light struck the ground, the beam expanded in a spherical radius of around 5 meters, nearly enveloping the little kitten whole before she was propelled outwards from the blast wave caused by the explosion. The Ravager armor cracked and shattered all over, barely sticking together while the little kitten's body was cut apart terribly due to the beam's blast, spurting blood in various places, that began to coat her silver armor and fur a crimson color. Her body tumbled through the air as she is pushed out of the spell's blast radius before she falls to the ground, tumbling until she bashes into a far wall, cracks forming in her wake. The little kitten's eyes open warily as she slowly recovers from the great pain aching throughout her small body. She spits out a glob of crimson blood before attempting to stand up from her prone position. Her legs shake as she pulls herself up, but she is clearly worse for wear. The little kitten turns her attention to the steel-shelled turtle to find that, to her surprise, that the beast was also looking pretty beat up. Its mouth was gaping open as it breathed heavily, visibly steaming. Its eyes also looked dim. It must have took a lot of aura to produce such a killer attack. Looks like this is not over yet. The little kitten's eyes lit up in confidence once more before she sang out in a chant, summoning the sky-piercing bolt once more. I can't hold on much longer with all the damage I've taken. I need to end this quickly. The little kitten gritted her teeth. While the sky-piercing bolt dealt quite a good amount of damage back then, it would still take several more hits to finish this beast off. I need to up the ante. And I know exactly what to try. The little kitten's eyes took on a peculiar gleam and she let a long breath. Meanwhile, the steel-shelled beast had also begun to recover as its breathing evened out to some level of normalcy once more. The beast's head retreated into its shell once again, leaving only its gleaming eyes visible as it continues to glare at the little kitten. A few seconds later, the steel-shelled beast was singing in a chant, summoning those metallic spears from before. This time, however, they spent no time hiding and seemed to swim openly in the air and ground as they crisscrossed and charged forth in a waving snake-like motion towards the little kitten. As the little kitten watched this, she suddenly began to sing another chant and soon a familiar, orange flame ignited into life and took on the form of a slithering snake. It was the wandering glow spell. Let's hope this works. The little kitten let out a nervous exhale as her eyes narrowed in concentration. But before she could act, she found that the steel-shelled turtle's spell was fast incoming. Those metallic spikes were just seconds from piercing through her already wounded body. She could not afford to go lax. The little kitten jumped to safety, just as those spikes crashed into the wall where she once stood, piercing deeply into the wall's foundation. Meanwhile, the little kitten's eyes instantly changed target, from those spikes to the floating wandering glow spell and the sky-piercing bolt spell which had followed her during her escape. Now, the little kitten gritted her teeth while those two spells suddenly shot into action, blasting forward in conjunction with each other towards the steel-shelled turtle. Within seconds, the sky-piercing bolt and the wandering glow spell's trajectory grew steadily closer until eventually, the two began to overlap, the flaming snake of the wandering glow spell overlapping with the metallic bolt that was the sky-piercing bowl. I'll call the combination of these two spells, the bolt of the blazing snake. The little kitten declared as her narrowed eyes watched on nervously. Meanwhile, those steel spikes were still in action after missing its target the first time. However, the little kitten couldn't spare the time to split her attention when she was performing a new spell that was so crucial to her victory to dodge this upcoming attack. In this desperate moment where she felt she might just have to suffer this deadly attack head-on, sacrificing her body to deal a possibly finishing blow, it was at this time she suddenly remembered another option. The bracelet. Back in Evergale City, when the little kitten and Jonathan visited the Howling Paragon and bought all those spells for her, Jonathan had also bought her a collar that allowed for emergency communication between the two of them, and he also bought her a protective collar as well. But it was the bracelet that brought hope in this crucial situation. This bracelet, when activated, would seek out a target and explode in a blast of aura, like a smaller and more crude version of the steel-shelled turtle's attack from earlier. The little kitten wasted no time after thinking of this method and directed a strand of her aura towards her right paw and activated the bracelet from where it lay. Once activated, a white blast suddenly shot out and, directed by the kitten, shot towards the incoming metallic spikes, blasting directly on them. A large boom resounded the room as a blast several meters wide shook the whole room, succeeding in actually breaking those metallic spikes into several pieces and redirecting the rest of the metallic spikes careening off course to scrape against the floor, becoming lifeless for the moment. The steel-shelled turtle's connection to the spell had been disconnected in this blast. While the little kitten had safely protected herself from that imminent threat, the bolt of the blazing snake blazed through the small room, the flaming bolt reaching its destination in less than a few seconds, striking the steel-shelled turtle before it even had the time to react. The steel-shelled turtle instantly let out a loud, guttural scream of pure pain as the flaming bolt brutally pierced through its steel shell and penetrated its body, the flaming snake boiling its innards in a matter of seconds. As the little kitten watched on, she found herself a little horrified as the beast slowly succumbed to the pain and thrashed about aimlessly inside its massive shell, as if trying to ward off the pain desperately. Soon, that loud, ear-piercing cry slowly grew hoarse and quietened down until it became but a whisper, and then eventually, the steel-shelled turtle emitted sound no more. Watching this, the little kitten's only reaction was to hug the floor in her exhaustion. She had finally beat the third test, and without losing consciousness this time. Though she could feel that she was cutting it close, her aura and body completely exhausted. Hee. I knew I was awesome. Now there is only one test left. Just one more. The little kitten purred. Her eyes were hazy in her exhaustion, yet they also held a bright gleam as she thought on with excitement at how close she was now that she had passed another test. Chapter 41, Stairs of Ascension. The little kitten laid on the marble floor for several minutes before her rough breathing was able to calm down to some level of normalcy. She was thoroughly tired out, physically and mentally. Her aura was dangerously low once again and her muscles ached from being overworked. Having recovered somewhat, the little kitten's head eventually rose when she seemed to come to a realization. Wait. Freak, why haven't you shown yourself yet? Where's my vitality potion? I feel like I'm dying her. Cake. The guardian spirit's annoying laughter could be heard first before a red-furred form materialized into existence a few steps in front of the little kitten, looking down at her with a pleased grin. Why haven't I shown myself? It was for your benefit, obviously. It's good for you to experience the great pain of drying out your aura reserves. The guardian spirit nodded its heads as if it were an elder spouting wise words. The little kitten was stuck between crying and being angry. In the end, she simply let out a long defeated sigh. Seeing this, the guardian spirit let out a soft laugh before warping into existence a familiar bottle containing a violet-colored liquid, the vitality potion. Open up. The guardian spirit spoke with a grin as he popped off the potion's lid, causing the strong stench of medicine to permeate throughout the air. Ugh! The little kitten groaned and her nose twitched as the bad stench of the vitality potion irritated it. This is going to taste as bad as it smells, isn't it? She had not had to suffer this last time due to being unconscious when the guardian spirit fed her it last time. The little kitten opened her mouth dejectedly and winced when she tasted the foul potion as the guardian spirit gently poured it into her mouth. In a matter of seconds, the little kitten could already feel her wounds healing and energy return to her body. She even felt her inner haven organ churning out more and more aura, and she could tell, given an hour or so, her aura output would return to some level of normalcy. The little kitten let out a pleased purr, feeling reinvigorated as she slowly but surely recovered, bringing new life back into her eyes. Now then, congratulations puny cat on passing the third test. The guardian spirit spoke with a large smile, repositioning his seating position atop the hovering seat in the meanwhile casually. That's right, what's the final test then? The little kitten was instantly distracted from her healing wounds and she stared at the guardian spirit intently in anticipation. What beasts do I have to slay this time? Cake, beast. The guardian spirit tilted his head playfully. The final test will involve no beasts. In fact, it will contain no fighting at all. What? Then, what do I have to do? The little kitten asked with a flustered look. Apart from fighting, sleeping, eating, what else could she even do? The little kitten felt a headache coming on. For this final test, you will be climbing the stairs of ascension, the guardian spirit announced. The fourth test is to walk up some stairs. The little kitten tilted her head in confusion, her small eyes blinking a few times as if processing the guardian spirit's words. Keek, it's not as simple as that. The Stairs of Ascension are a common magical landmark that can be found in many places throughout this universe. In fact, most every blessing of the gods feature such objects, though they are rarely used. The guardian spirit explained. For this test, you will only have to climb 50 of the steps to have considered to have passed this trial. 50. What's the deal with these steps? Why wouldn't I be able to climb 50 simple steps? The little kitten asked, her ears twitching in vexation. With every step you take as you ascend the Stairs of Ascension, you will feel an increase of pressure upon both your body and soul. The guardian spirit said as it looked seriously at the silver kitten across from it. I see. And how many steps does this Stairs of Ascension entail? The little kitten inquired. Before answering, the guardian spirit just responded with a large grin. How much? 100. 1000. The little kitten's eyes opened wide in a flustered manner. Cake. The guardian spirit simply held up his furry hands and held up 7 of its fingers. 7, 700? The little kitten asked doubtfully, only to see the guardian spirit shaking its head in response. 7 to 7,000? Cake, indeed. Out of 70,000 steps, all you need to pass this trial is to climb 50 of them. 7,000 steps. How long are these stairs? The little kitten exclaimed as her thoughts began to fill with the image of stairs piercing the sky and ascending into space. Stairs of ascension indeed. I should clarify that climbing the first 50 steps is but the minimal requirement to pass this test. Only the minimal requirement. All right, freak. Stop beating around the bush and explain already. My mind's going to blow up in all the confusion soon. Puny cat, puny brain. The guardian spirit mocked and the little kitten sent it a death glare in response. Laughing her off, the guardian spirit simply continued to talk. Okay, puny cat. Let me explain about the stairs of ascension and the specifics of your fourth test properly. All right, I'm all ears. The little kitten's ears twitched in accordance to this statement, looking pretty cute. If only there was a person to fawn over her and not a freak like the guardian spirit across from her who liked to mess with her every other second. Chapter 42, The Three Targets. Alright, so the stairs of ascension have been used for multiple millennia, and during that process, the Magicians' Society, the general term for all magicians, have determined the average distance each cultivation rank can climb up the stairs of ascension. For example, it has been determined that a late-stage natural state rank can climb up to around 45 steps before they cannot continue any longer. Obviously, this is just the average magician. If it were someone of, say, my caliber at that rank, I could probably double that amount. The guardian spirit bragged as it pointed to itself with a show-off grin. Heh! The little kitten just rolled her eyes. Due to the difference in strength between magicians and magical beasts, the two groups actually have two different averages. This is due to the particular nature of each side's cultivation. While humans are rather fast in their cultivation, reaching the higher realms twice as fast sometimes, their cultivation ranks suffer from being a tad weaker than a magical beast's equivalent rank. For example, an early-stage minor transcendent beast could square off against a mid-stage inner haven-ranked magician. In exchange for their superior base strength though, you magical beasts take longer to cultivate, especially at the later ranks. Is that the case? The little kitten felt enlightened by all this knowledge, and she noted it down in the back of her mind before returning her attention to the guardian spirit's next words. In the case of the stairs of ascension, while the average for a late-stage natural state magician is 45 steps, for a late-stage minor beast like yourself, the average is actually 50. The guardian spirit concluded his explanation. So to pass this test, I only have to pass the average? The little kitten's eyes lit up in confidence, but returned to normal as she seemed to recall something. Wait, you said that 50 steps were only the minimal requirement. What are the other targets, and why should I care about them? Cake, you're really straightforward, quite accurate to your feline nature. The guardian spirit laughed. With every target you meet, the better your reward. Usually in the past, when I would use this item to test someone, the rewards would purely be a magical item of a certain level. But in your case, with every target met, I will also add in one more question that you will be allowed to ask me. But I'll warn you now, there are many things that I simply cannot answer. Or in the smallest of chances, there will be some certain things that I just simply don't know or have the right to know. Those last words seemed to be spoken with a huge amount of reluctance from the guardian spirit. The little kitten's eyes lit up in excitement, and she immediately began to work out in her mind the questions she would like to ask about her origins. Instantly, she came across one question she was most desperate to find out. That question would definitely be the first one she would ask. Before she could continue thinking every possible question she wanted to ask, the guardian spirit's voice broke her out of her thoughts as it continued on with its explanation. Cake, let's not get ahead of ourselves, puny cat. Let me tell you the targets you need to meet and the rewards that will follow if you meet them. Meow. The little kitten mewed enthusiastically. She was rather excited to see what kind of items she might win, even if it was the questions she found most important. She felt that finding out the possible info he might find out here might not be the easiest to come by again. Who knows if she tackles another blessing of the gods, Would they take their time to do the same? She highly doubted it. This was a big chance. By passing the minimal requirement of 50 steps, I will reward you with a blue rarity dull ranked item of your choosing. This item can be a weapon, shield, trap, or whatever else you can find in my inventory. Oh, I get to choose my item? The little kitten was glad about this. This would be the first item I earned on my own in this world. Those 4 spells and 2 magical items I have received in the past have all been bought by Jonathan. I really have to pay him back someday. All those items couldn't have been cheap. Someday. Indeed, it's always interesting to see what items people can lure out of that inventory. The guardian spirit seemed to have a wistful look before it shook his head and returned to its explanation. The next target is 75 steps, where you would be rewarded with your second question and a purple rarity dull ranked item. I should note that you will only get 1 magical item. These don't tally up. That makes sense. The little kitten nodded her head in understanding. And finally, the final target is 100 steps, which would reward you with your third question and a gold rarity dull magical item. Oh, gold rarity. The little kitten held an excited gleam in her eyes at just the thought. She couldn't imagine how powerful such a rare magical item could be. Though, I was honestly expecting you to add a few more targets. Like 200 steps for this super awesome item of legendary proportions. Cake, that would be the usual fantasy of you magicians and magical beasts, wouldn't it? The guardian spirit laughed, surprisingly softly. However, while I might like to have a little fun most of the time some would call it being irritating. The little kitten interjected with a grin. Cough, cough, As I was saying, while I might like to have a little fun most of the time, I still take my work as a guardian spirit seriously. My job is to test out a person's abilities, their strengths and weaknesses, and give a little guidance and reward them appropriately to boost their abilities further. In truth, the magical items are but a carrot to lure magicians and magical beasts so we can temper the present and future generation. If I were to say, at 200 steps, I'd reward you with a blue rarity vibrant magical item. Not only would that be dangerous, it would also not be inappropriate to award you with an item that is beyond your means. Such an item would only bring upon danger to you, being as weak as you are compared to those that would covet such an item. The guardian spirit explained seriously. I understand, I was simply curious. The little kitten nodded her head solemnly. That's fine, though they say curiosity killed the cat. One should also not let their eyes be closed to possible gains, lest they miss a golden chance. The guardian spirit smirked. Now then, puny cat, are you ready? Meow. The little kitten confidently replied. Let's do this, red freak. The guardian spirit narrowed its playful eyes before simply shaking its head and sighing. It was not going to escape this nickname, was it? Whatever, let me take you to the stairs of ascension. The guardian spirit announced. Before the little kitten could respond, she found her sight darkening for an instant before a feeling of nausea took over. Damn it, teleportation again. The little kitten gagged as she held back an incoming vomit. Cake, looks like you are truly fated with teleportation. The guardian spirit laughed at her misfortune. As the spinning began to cease and the feeling of nausea was being whisked away, the little kitten could finally take the time to survey her new surroundings. To her surprise, she found herself in a world of white and below her, a clear reflection of herself. She was reminded of the area she had first entered this trial in several hours earlier. Everything was the same, except from the so-called stairs of ascension that stood tall, ascending into the far-off horizon of the lifeless sky. The stairs of ascension were rather simple surprisingly, being a blanket white color, much similar to the world around it. On each side of the stairs were decorative railings, but aside from that, there was little else of note about these stairs. Just that it was monstrously long. So this is the stairs of ascension? The little kitten walked forward until she was standing right in front of the stairs of ascension, and she let her eyes study them one more time, her eyes gazing up to gawk at the horizon where the stairs vanished into the horizon of the white sky once more. Letting out a small breath, the little kitten turned to face the guardian spirit. You ready? The guardian spirit asked after letting the little kitten adjust to the new landscape. The little kitten was about to agree when she suddenly noticed a problem. Aren't the steps a little too high for me? Hearing this, the guardian spirit turned to look, and indeed, the height of those steps would require for the cat to extend extra effort with each step, as she would probably have to leap to get to the next step. Oh, I forgot. It's been a while since I've had a large or small magical beast ascending the stairs, so I forgot to change the size from the normal human settings. The guardian spirit smiled wryly. Give me a few moments, let me use some of my rune formation skills to change the size of this stairs of ascension. With that, the guardian spirit walked up to the grand stairs side and its 10 fingers began to glow in an azure light. The guardian spirit seemed to be tapping at the air as it got to work. As it did so, unseen before, runes lit up in an azure glow all around the white stairs of the stairs of ascension. There we go. The guardian spirit smirked and the azure glow of its fingers and of the runes were whisked away just as an amazing change was taking place with the stairs of ascension. Whoa! The little kitten watched in amazement as the stairs of ascension begun to visibly shrink before her eyes. Soon, a stairs of ascension fit for her smaller size was visible in all its glory in front of the kitten and the guardian spirit. The little kitten was amazed to see that despite the stairs of ascension's shrinking of size, the length of it still extended out of the horizon. The guardian spirit turned towards her at this point and seeing its gaze, she nodded in return. I'm ready. Then ascend forth. Everything is ready. Be vigilant and don't underestimate or overexert yourself too fast. The guardian spirit nodded before hovering off to the side, its gaze steady on the little kitten as she stepped steadily towards the first step of the stairs of ascension. With a long breath, the little kitten quickly took her first step. The first step of the many to come. My target is 100. The little kitten declared internally. Chapter 43, Ascending Pressure. This doesn't feel too bad. The little kitten mused after stepping fully upon the first step of the stairs of ascension. She could feel a small pressure pushing down on her, but it was hardly anything and she felt she could live her whole life like this without issue. But this is just the first step. By the time I get to say, 50, I wonder how much pressure will be weighing down on both my body and soul then. The little kitten narrowed her eyes and she started to feel nervous. Pushing those thoughts to the back of her head, the kitten ascended to the second step and then to the third. She continued to ascend at this steady pace until she reached the 8th step. Wow, I'm really starting to feel it now. The little kitten gritted her teeth. She could feel like she was being weighed down by gravity itself, except this force didn't just affect her body. She also felt like something was digging into her soul as well. The soul was the source of a magician and magical beast's cultivation. To break through to the next stage or rank, a magician or magical beast were essentially evolving their soul. An evolved soul allowed the body to evolve as well, exceeding their mortal beginnings and transforming them into more powerful beings. So for this weight to be putting increasing weight on their soul, was like restricting their cultivation base. This would affect their aura output and the strength of their mortal body. The higher the little kitten rose up the stairs of ascension, the lower her cultivation base would drop until eventually it would feel like she has returned to being just a normal cat. To prevent the soul from degrading too much, the kitten was forced to fuel it with her aura. Doing this kept her soul at an equilibrium. However, eventually she would then run her aura dry. And when her aura ran dry, she would then be left with a quickly degrading soul and body. I can't let myself stay idle, I have to move fast or I'll just be wasting my aura and stamina. The little kitten sighed before taking on a look of deep concentration as she proceeded forth to the 9th step, the 10th step and onward with a fervor. The little kitten was already at the 20th step and her body was somewhat lowered, as if a large weight was on her back, bending it. With tensed muscles, she stepped onto the 21st step and then the 22nd. Her momentum would only stop for a second with every step as she adjusted to the new level of pressure before she would move on to the next step. Fortunately, the weight upon her was not too much yet and she could proceed forth with a steady but safe pace. The aura she was using to keep her soul strong against the rising pressure was still at a low level, allowing her to spend a little of her aura in boosting her small body, helping her stand strong against the pressure upon her body as well. Despite using so much aura on various tasks, she was still at the point where she was producing more aura than she was expending. allowing her to climb at this steady pace. She was now at the 34th step and her walking pace was clearly slower as with the last few steps. The delay between climbing onto a step and onto the next was changing from a few seconds to multiple seconds. 3:35 The little kitten exclaimed in timing with her stepping up onto the 35th step. At this point, the pressure weighing down on her made it so that even thinking had become a difficulty. To keep her mind active, she had resolved to counting every step as she climbed them. 36. 3:37 40th. The little kitten exclaimed excitedly. Only 10 more to the first target. The little kitten's climbing speed had slowed down for the last few steps as she trudged on. Yet with the first goal in clear sight, the little kitten pushed her body to the limit, increasing her pace to reach that 50th sooner. Adrenaline filled her body and soon, she had stepped on the 47th step. The 48th. The 49th. 50th. The little kitten felt like jumping in the air in her excitement, but she held herself back, lest she overexert herself and waste her energy. I can't get too excited just yet, this is only the halfway mark. 7-71st. The little kitten thoughts between long, croaky breaths. Her breathing had turned heavy, like the pressure that continuously weighed upon her. Her body was leaning closer and closer to the white steps with every step she took. Her mouth laid perpetually open dumbly and her eyes were growing hazy and tired. Yet her eyes continued to hold a concentrated gleam, narrowed and looking ahead intently as she took the next step forward, bringing her to the 72nd step. 72 ND. 73 road. 74 tit. 7-75. The little kitten eyes shut as she took a second to just settle her emotions before opening them once again, gazing determinedly upwards with deep concentration. Only 25 more steps. Yet, I feel like I'm walking with a mountain on my back. My inner haven organ has long been producing aura at a loss. Soon, I'll be running low on aura. I have to move. Yet, despite telling herself to move, she found that her body would not. As if paralyzed, she stood haphazardly still upon that 75th step, not moving for several seconds. What's happening? Move. The little kitten gritted her teeth and expended extra aura into her 4 paws, bulging them visibly. Finally, her front right paw extended towards the 76th step. With a little more effort, she was soon upon the 76th step. Yet, she found more pressure bearing down upon her small body and soul, only increasing her troubles. Despite this, her bulging paws continued forth. 77 tit. 78 tit. 83 road. 89 tit. 90 tit. No, come on. The little kitten screamed internally as her paws suddenly faltered and she found her body careening downwards, flopping onto the solid white step below. The weight was too much. Her bulging paws had been shaking for the last few steps, and finally were unable to hold her up on this 90th step. Meanwhile, her aura was also reaching a dangerously low level as well. Looks like this might be over soon. Though I have a feeling she might be able to struggle a little longer. Sigh. Either way, to reach the 90th step is already a ginormous achievement, nearly doubling the reach of her contemporaries. The guardian spirit was watching with keen eyes, hovering at the little kitten's side. It had turned itself invisible, just on the off chance that its presence would cause the little kitten to have a lapse of attention. Let's see what you've got, puny cat. I can't fail now. Only 10 more. The little kitten was pushing against the floor with all her strength, forcing her aching body upwards. After several seconds of tiring effort, the little kitten had actually managed to stand back up, though just barely. Her 4 paws were shaking and her eyes were nearly shut. She couldn't lift her front paws. I need to do something. I'm at a point where sheer willpower ain't gonna win me nothing. The little kitten's mind was going in circles as she thought of every possible option was available, all the while her body was working with all its strength to push her forward. Unfortunately, she was unsuccessful as her body just stood there shaking against her will. I am too tired. Need to wake up. The little kitten's vision was growing blurry and her body felt like it was going to collapse any second. Need to wake myself up. The little kitten's eyes lit up with a determined glint as she suddenly begun to chant aloud. When the chant came to an end, a spark of fire lit up into life, forming into an orange snake that slithered in the air menacingly. Nothing like some pain to wake you up. The little kitten gritted her teeth, and with a determined grunt, sent the wandering glow spell into the air before making it careen backwards, aiming straight at her own body. The sound of sizzling fire could be heard as the little kitten was struck by the wandering glow spell. Instantly, the little kitten's eyes shot open and with all the strength she could muster, aided by her increased adrenaline, pushed her body to newfound's limit. 91st. After several minutes of being unable to move forward, the little kitten had finally climbed the next step, landing herself on the 91st step. Her momentum didn't stop there as she pushed herself onto the 92nd and eventually, after some more effort, stepped up to the 93rd step before she felt her body falter once more. Need more encouragement. The little kitten growled and quickly, she was struck once more by the wandering glow spell as it grazed her left side, turning her fur a black color. 94th. Reaching the 94th step, she found her body coming to a standstill again. Without hesitation, she maneuvered the wandering glow spell to strike her again. Using this method, the little kitten proceeded forth with a very slow, but effective method. 96. 97th. 98th. The little kitten exclaimed. Yet when her body reached that 98th step, her paws faltered and she fell harshly against the step. Merg. The little kitten mewed in an exasperated fashion from the pain. She felt like a normal cat at this point and the pain of the weight upon her shoving her against the ground hurt her immensely. Yet this pain did nothing to awake her tired body. She could not find the strength to move another step. Even when she struck herself with the wandering glow spell, she found it did little to motivate her forward. Her eyes were barely aslit and her mouth lulled open as deep, croaky breaths were exhaled out her lungs in a long, exaggerated fashion. Is this the extent of my strength? So close to the end, I give up. No. There's so much to ask the guardian spirit. I can't give up. I don't care if I fail, but I will not let myself give up without doing all I can to succeed. Ever since I've arrived in this world, I can't bear to look upon the memories of my previous life. Living off the charity of people and lazing around, achieving squat. There's so much out there in this world, I will not be nothing. Someone or something gave me the chance to live a more productive life, gave me the intelligence and the chance to soar in this new life. I'm not going to be a stupid street cat no longer, I'm going to fly at the sky realm and succeed to whatever lays beyond. All I want is to live to my fullest. An exciting and fulfilling life. The little kitten's eyes lit with a determination, one much stronger than any she had shown before. At this moment when she had felt helpless, when the tiredness almost took her over and she was about to give up at any second, the little kitten suddenly felt enlightened by her own thoughts. She felt she had found a goal in her life, to live to her fullest. This goal may be simple. But for someone who had previously just been living in total ignorance in one life, then simply adjusting to the new world in this new life, one where she was simply going with the flow, this was still a powerful motivator. One that helped her step forward once more, despite all the odds. 99th. The little kitten's eyes lit up in excitement and she didn't delay, her left paw moving forward, touching the last step. Her body was shaking and she struggled with all her strength, eventually touching the 100th step with her right paw also. Now, all she had to do was leap with her 2 legs and land upon the 100th step and she would be done. She would have reached the third and last target. Meow. The little kitten cried out with all her strength and concentrated all of the little amount of aura she had left in her 2 legs as she pushed against the ground, leaping forth. 100th. The little kitten landed roughly on the 100th step, crashing into the wall of the next with her aching back. Reaching her goal, the little kitten instantly felt her body go limp. She didn't care to fight against the immense pressure pushing down against her. She just laid there in her bliss. Proving once again, my superiority. The little kitten giggled. Exclamation point. When the guardian spirit saw the little kitten climb those last 2 steps, its eyes opened widely and its mouth lulled open with a look of shock before curling to a grin. To think. She would gain some insight at the last second. And into such a rare element too. Chapter 44, Herself. What a narcissistic little thing. The guardian spirit smiled wryly. To think she actually gained some insight into the element of self. The guardian spirit could only shake its head. Suddenly, the little kitten felt the pressure bearing down upon her vanish. With the dissipation of that pressure, she also felt herself lulling into a tired sleep as her eyes gradually closed. Only to be awoken by the feeling of a liquid being suddenly poured into her throat. Soon, she felt her muscle aches lessen and her tiredness begin to evaporate. She also felt her aura spike to life once more, previously being weakened to a point where it was producing a negligible amount of aura. Ah, that must have been a vitality potion. The little kitten's eyes opened to see the guardian spirit floating in front of her, a familiar empty bottle in its hand which it soon discarded flashily, as always. "Keek, don't puke now," the guardian spirit cryptically said, its right hand prepped in a snapping motion. "Hey!" Before the little kitten could digest the guardian spirit's words, it snapped its fingers and suddenly the world around her turned dark and then she found herself in an entirely new environment. As usual, the little kitten found herself in a terrible state, the world around her spinning. It was extra worse due to her weakened condition. Preventing herself from puking took all of her willpower. "See, couldn't you have waited a few minutes before sending me through hell?" The little kitten felt indignant. "Care, all to bolster your perseverance, all for you." The guardian spirit nodded and put on a wisely air. Though in the eyes of the little kitten, all she saw was an irritating piece of oversized red fluff. The little kitten let out a long sigh to calm herself before surveying her new surroundings. This place was a rather humbly sized room, colored fully golden and only featuring a metallic door as an exit and strange floating moving images on the opposite wall. Looking at these moving images, the little kitten could see several people in action. Some were fighting off against other humans or magical beasts, some seemed to be partaking in some sort of complex puzzle, and she saw others crossing difficult landscapes. While looking through all these scenes, her vision eventually stopped on one in particular where she saw a familiar figure. Jonathan. The little kitten's eyes opened in recognition. Indeed, on one of the screens was the familiar figure of Jonathan. His ink-black hair was ruffled in the wind as he leapt gracefully through the air, a blazing flame passing by in his wake, nearly striking him. Though she couldn't hear him, the kitten saw his mouth moving and could tell he was in the middle of a chant. When that chant came to a close, a figure suddenly formed behind him to his right. This figure was rather large, probably 4 meters tall, and seemed to be fully crafted by azure lightning. This summoned figure let out a loud, crackling screech before charging forth in a jagged fashion at an opponent that stood several meters in front of Jonathan. This enemy was a human figure wearing a plain red mask with no eye holes. His clothes were plain black and tight-fitting. Try with all his might, this red-masked figure was unable to dodge in time as the azure lightning figure was simply too shockingly fast and traveled in a bizarre and unpredictable motion, bearing down on the red-masked figure in a matter of seconds. The azure lightning figure exploded into a series of lightning which shot through the red-masked figure's body, looking extremely painful. Soon, the red-masked figure fainted upon the floor, black smoke lifting off its charred body. After a few seconds of simply laying there, the red-masked figure's body suddenly began to vanish into dust. This dust swirled into the air for a few moments before forming back into the familiar form of the red-masked figure. Except, instead of a red mask, the figure now donned a blue mask. "That's the human you were traveling with, isn't it?" The guardian spirit's voice broke her out of her attention. "Yeah, how did you know?" the little kitten asked. "Keek, I can see all of Thunder Mountain. I've been watching you lot for a while now. You know, as soon as you step on Thunder Mountain, the trial has already begun. I assess you before you enter the ruins and will pick the appropriate test based on one's performance and personality," the guardian spirit informed. Is that so? Then what was my assessment?" The little kitten tilted her head in the guardian spirit's direction. "Arrogant, puny and ditzy," the guardian spirit deadpanned. The side of the little kitten's mouth twitched, but stopped when the guardian spirit's voice continued. "Yet, full of potential, with a lot of natural talent and rather hard-working. The second part's right enough." The little kitten humphed. "Talking about potential. You have no idea of the amazing thing you just achieved back there at the end of the Stairs of Ascension test, do you?" The guardian spirit narrowed its eyes as it suddenly spoke in a serious tone. Huh? What do you mean? The little kitten's eye turned to the ceiling as she tried to think back to what the guardian spirit could be talking about, before eventually returning her gaze to the guardian spirit as she shook her head in defeat. I don't understand. Keek, I thought as much. You, puny cat, found some insight into an external element. The little kitten's eyes grew wide when she heard the guardian spirit's words. Insight into an external element. The little kitten repeated. As in an element that is not naturally aligned to me. Indeed, and a rather rare element at that. The guardian spirit spoke mysteriously. The element of self. Self. What kind of narcissistic element is that? The corner of the little kitten's mouth twitched in vexation. She didn't know whether to be excited or angry. Don't take the element of self at face value. Not only is it one of the rarest in the rare elements category, nearly at the holy level, it can be rather powerful when used, equaling the strength of certain holy elements, such as space and time in battle. The guardian spirit explained. Though, your level of insight into the element of self is rather minuscule and needs much more tempering. It's that amazing? The little kitten asked doubtfully. The element of self can draw power from the world around you and forces it to bend to your will, fueling your soul and body, just like it gave you the strength to reach the 100th step of the stairs of ascension. The element of self is all about bolstering your body and soul, relying on your own self to challenge all obstacles. The guardian spirit continued its explanation. So when you were able to push yourself to the limit back in the stairs of ascension and find your sense of self, the element of self seemed to come naturally to you. I see. How can I gain more insight into something so vague? The little kitten was still rather perplexed by the idea behind this element. All you have to do is stay true to yourself and continue to study yourself. What is it that makes you, you? The element of self can't be forced and can only be trained cautiously. Due to the element of self's rarity, finding any spells or anything else to help you in this endeavor will be met with several difficulties, but you must keep your eye out for them. The guardian spirit told her seriously. I will. The little kitten nodded her affirmation. Chapter 45, The Little Kitten's Divine Origins. Now then, are you ready to receive your rewards? The guardian spirit asked, its serious expression warming to its usual playfulness after its explanation lecture. Yes. The little kitten nodded enthusiastically. Someone is already in the treasure room right now, so we'll start off with your 3 questions first. That okay? That's fine. Then, shoot away. My first question is, do I have a family? The little kitten asked, her eyes darting about nervously. She looked at the guardian spirit intently, paws involuntarily clenched in preparation for its upcoming response. The short answer is yes. The guardian spirit immediately responded, and its words made the little kitten's eyes light up in excitement. However, I can neither tell you who they are and their current condition, for I don't know. All I know is... Actually, before that, let me ask, you have not been in this world for long, have you? Hey, how did you know? The little kitten blurted. Keek, it's quite simple. Your soul has signs of being damaged, a particular damage that can only be seen due to a botched-up rebirth. The guardian spirit responded confidently. My soul is damaged. But it looks perfectly fine to me. The little kitten asked doubtfully as she closed her eyes. Her unconscious eye went to work and soon she could see her soul, which rested close to her heart. The little kitten opened her eyes and shook her head. She could not see anything that looked like damage in her soul. For someone as weak as yourself, of course you can't see it. But for someone like me, it's as obvious as can be. The guardian spirit answered with a grin. All living souls upon death go through rebirth. Except yours was a very peculiar one, because someone put a special spell on your soul, guiding your soul upon death to this world. What? So someone wanted me to come to this world? The little kitten eyes opened wide before taking on a look of confusion, her mouth forming into a frown. And if I were to guess, I would say that the ones responsible for this would be your parents, or someone close to them. Hey! The little kitten looked on dumbly as she tried to process this information. You're really getting your money's worth with this first question. Ah! The guardian spirit sighed. Let me tell you my hypothesis. I believe you are a magical beast from the divine realm. Divine realm, what's that? The little kitten immediately blurted out in question. Ke. You really don't know much of anything. The guardian spirit said with a disdainful gaze. The little kitten could only shrug. All right, because this is getting off track from your initial question, I'm going to take that question you just asked as your second question. So do you still want me to answer that? After thinking for a bit, the little kitten nodded her consent. All right, then here we go. This universe consists of 3 planes. They are known accordingly as the lesser realm, the higher realm and the divine realm. The guardian spirit's fingers were stuck up with each listing until 3 fingers were pointing upwards. The lesser realm have no aura or magic, instead relying on technology and science to reach higher heights. The higher realm is where this world currently resides as a small planet and has aura and magic. And finally, there is the realms of the gods, the divine realms. I'm a god. The little kitten exclaimed, her eyes gleaming with a cross between excitement and disbelief. No. The guardian spirit's dull response broke her out of her excitement immediately. You are but the daughter of gods. In the end, one can only be a god after cultivating magic to its highest levels. And you are far from accomplishing that. I see. The little kitten frowned dejectedly. Back to your first question. As I said, I believe your parents are gods. But don't take gods as almighty beings, they can die too and there are different tiers of gods. I believe your parents were in some level of danger and were forced to take some drastic measures to protect your life. The guardian spirit's voice turned solemn at this point. Am my family's in danger? The little kitten's eyes turned hazy and a worried look overtook her instantly. This is but a theory, but I believe so. I believe they must have sent you down to the lesser realm first. You have memories of living in another world without magic, don't you? The guardian spirit inquired. How do you know this too? A soul tells 1,000 words. The guardian spirit said mysteriously with a smirk. And, the safest place from a god, is the lesser realm. The gods cannot travel to the lesser realm due to certain laws of the universe while they can actually have a small presence in the higher realms. These blessing of the gods are an example of one of the ways the gods interact with the higher realm. I understand. So my parents sent me to the lesser realm for my protection from some unknown threat. But then why didn't I stay in the lesser realms upon death and why come to this world in particular? The little kitten couldn't help but ask. This will be considered your third and final question, is that okay? The guardian spirit asked after some thought. There is only so much I can inform you. In fact, I may already have been too generous already with what I have already said. But if your parents are who I think they are. The guardian spirit shook its head, shaking it out of its thoughts and returning its attention to the little kitten as she answered confidently after some thoughts of her own. It's okay. Like I said, the gods cannot touch the lesser realms. The only reason you were able to enter the lesser realms was because you were not a god. But even that was pushing the rules of the universe already. To bring you back, nigh impossible. And if they directly sent you to the higher realms, it would not be too difficult for unfriendly individuals to find you. But if you were to enter the higher realms through the lesser realms first, the difficulty in finding you increases by quite a lot. Especially on a planet like this one, which has been separated from the rest of the higher realms for a millennia now. The guardian spirit ended its long explanation with a long sigh. Then why haven't my parents come to find me? The little kitten asked dejectedly. The guardian spirit narrowed its eyes at her before sighing. You're really pushing your luck with all these extra questions, puny cat. Fine, I'll answer this, but after this we're moving on to your next reward. The little kitten just nodded her answer. All right then. What I believe is that your life is still in danger and you being hidden, even from your parents, would still be your greatest chance of survival. The guardian spirit answered sullenly. There's only one way you're going to be able to reunite with your parents. And that is to cultivate to the realm of the gods, isn't it? The little kitten sighed. Indeed. That's why this world is the perfect starting point for you. On this planet, the biggest threats are at the sky realm level. While still dangerous for you, compared to the rest of the higher realms, is still really well chosen on your parents' part. The guardian spirit's sullen expression changed into a surprisingly warming smile that surprised the little kitten. My parents planned so much just to protect me. The little kitten's eyes were turning hazy. No matter what, I need to reach the divine realm and help my parents face off against whatever it is that threatens them. However, I think I should inform you that your damaged soul will be a problem. The guardian spirit's expression turned stern. It seems your soul transferring from the lesser realm to the higher realm was too much of a strain on your weak soul, causing it to receive a bit of damage. How serious is it? The little kitten asked with a solemn expression. The guardian spirit sighed once more. It will heal over time. But it will still take several years and will start slowing down your cultivation when you reach a certain stage or rank. Your soul can handle the strain right now, but when your soul grows to a certain strength, the damage will kick in, slowing your cultivation until that damage is healed. Is there not a way to heal my soul faster? How about a potion or an item? The little kitten asked desperately. In this small world, it will be quite difficult. The guardian spirit shook its head solemnly. Honestly, your biggest shot for recovery would be to undergo a contract with a human. Hey! The little kitten was a little taken back by this. How does that help? Well, a contract between a magician and a magical beast links their souls together, and one function of the contract, at least with the equality contract, will use one's soul to heal the other, which will increase your rate of healing. I would even say that you could be healed before you ever feel your cultivation being hindered if you were to enter a contract soon enough. The guardian spirit explained. How convenient. Maybe I should go through with that contract with Jonathan's sister. The little kitten mumbled in thought. Oh, you were already considering a contract? With a member of the Wilderwolf family, huh? The guardian spirit seemed to go into thought before speaking up again with a smile. You'd be well off if you sign a contract with that family. They're rather the heroic bunch, you'd be safe there. Oh, you know the goings of the outside world? The little kitten asked. Of course. It gets so boring being stuck here all my life. So I always talk to a few of the people going through my trials to learn the latest information about the outside world. And I've only heard nothing but good things about the Wilderwolf family. Though every successful family is always going to have its enemies, the Wilderwolf family can be considered righteous, yet powerful. I see. I guess I'll have to really start considering that contract then. The little kitten sighed. She was a little scared to tie herself up to another party, especially to a person she had even met. Maybe if it was Jonathan. Maybe I should ask. You talking about that boy you've been traveling with? The guardian spirit asked as he pointed to one of the projectors on the wall, on which a fighting Jonathan could be seen. He was currently clashing with a brown-masked figure. Yes, that's him. The little kitten nodded. I wouldn't make a contract with him. The guardian spirit shook its head. Why's that? The little kitten's shoulders slumped. Your cultivation levels are too spread apart. You just hold him back from improving and put him in danger. I'm sure you don't want that. Also, this Jonathan fellow I believe is the eldest of the Wilderwolf, right? The guardian spirit asked. The little kitten nodded in affirmation. Then it's very likely that he'd take up the role as the next family head. Which would mean he would be stuck here for the rest of his life. I see. That makes sense. I guess Jonathan's not an option, then. The little kitten sighed. Then I'm just going to have to see what sort of character Jonathan's sister is. Also, I must make sure she has talent for magic as well. Now then, let's move on from all this depressing stuff. The guardian spirit spoke up, suddenly forming a wide grin as he just as suddenly clicked his fingers. The little kitten had an eerie feeling upon seeing this before she suddenly felt herself experiencing the familiar scene of the world around her turning black and the feeling of nausea hitting her. Chapter 46, The Crimson Iris. Enough with the teleporting already. The little kitten groaned as she recovered from her dizziness. Cake. Don't worry, this is the last one. If you don't count the one to kick you out of the Thunder Mountain trials. The guardian spirit giggled. Oh, great. The little kitten rolled her eyes and sighed helplessly. Now then, puny cat. This here is a small collection of gold rarity dull treasures that are fit for your use. I have more than this, but these items are the most suited to you. The guardian spirit explained. It was at this point that the little kitten finally took the time to survey her new surroundings. They were now in a rather large room. This room was rather historical looking, with large stone bricks making up the foundation of the walls, with a few vines intertwining the layers of the bricks. In the center of the room were various stone pillars that protruded from the floor and reached around chest height on a grown human. They seemed to hold certain items that the little kitten couldn't really see from her disadvantaged height. In total, there appeared to be around 30 of these pillars. "Hey, I can't see the items," the little kitten complained, a pout forming on her feline features. "Keh." The guardian spirit chuckled, a smug grin forming on his lips as he seemingly enjoyed her plight. "Tay, move over." The little kitten grumbled as she leapt up, landing softly at the front of the guardian spirit's hovering seat. Her small body let her fit snugly on it, and the guardian spirit just shrugged its shoulders, not caring much about it. "Now then." The little kitten's eyes seemed to gleam with a twinkle as she turned to face those various items sitting upon those pillars. In front of her, the little kitten could see that every item seemed to hover peacefully above the pillars, bobbing up and down ever so slightly. She saw various items that all looked incredibly precious. The first thing she noticed was a close-fitting metallic armor that shone with a noble grace with intricate carvings. This armor seemed fit for a small beast, looking like it would be too big for the little kitten, however. The little kitten frowned when she saw this. Noticing this, the guardian spirit could read her thoughts and informed. "All these items are size adjustable, so don't worry about size." "Okay, that makes sense." The little kitten replied, the excitement returning to her eyes. She went back to appraising the other items. She saw a red-colored metallic bangle, a collar with intricate runes running through it, and even saw an ear piercing with an azure gem. "Let me explain the properties behind these items before you make your choice." The guardian spirit spoke up at this point, breaking her out of her reverie. "Okay, shoot away." The little kitten nodded enthusiastically, and the guardian spirit began to list out the properties of each item quite patiently, answering any question the little kitten had on any given item at the same time. "I'll choose." The little kitten mumbled in thought as she surveyed all the shining items one more time. She found it hard to only choose one out of all of these amazing items. For example, she turned to look at a chest piece that grew outwards into a set of metallic wings. This was an item that actually allowed the user to fly, and at was a pretty fast speed too, definitely a strong aid in battle and travel alike. It was very deserving of its gold rarity status. She then turned to face another item that she found hard to leave behind. This item was a medallion that would hang off of a collar or the like. It had a deeply complex series of runes that, once activated, could cast a spell called Diamond Shell. The ultimate life-saving defensive spell that the dull rank could pull off. It could even be activated 3 times, with a day recovery rate. It also had a permanent shield, that while weaker than the Diamond Shell spell, was on at all times, ready to activate if it sensed any threat. However, in the end, the little kitten coveted one item in particular, and her eyes couldn't help but gleam in excitement when she returned her sight towards it. "I'll choose the Crimson Iris." This was the item she wanted out of the vast range available in front of her. This item was actually a bangle, one which could fit snugly onto her tail. The bangle was a deep crimson color with a simple but sleek carving of an eye at its forefront. The Crimson Iris bangle amazingly had 3 effects. The first effect that the Crimson Iris bangle gifted the user was a resistance to heat and fire. It wasn't a massive amount of resistance in the large scheme of things, but as only 1 out of 3 effects, it was a welcomed bonus. The second effect was the spell, Crimson Glaze. A defensive spell which would activate at the user's command, coating them in a protective barrier that also has the chance to burn the offending party if they had attacked with their physical body. The barrier isn't as strong as Diamond Shell, but it wasn't far off either. Finally, the third and strongest effect was another spell, the Scorching Ray spell. A major magical beast ranked spell that shoots out directly from the bangle's iris carving. This spell shoots out in a ray of light, burning with the heat of the sun, scorching all in its way. This spell actually has 5 slots, except it takes a week to recover each use. But as long as she had the spell in reserve, her attacking strength would be incredibly strong with this spell in her repertoire. A good choice. This item will do well to save you in times of crises, so hold on to it well. The guardian spirit smiled as he made a casual sweep of his right hand. In conjunction with that small movement, the crimson bangle crimson iris was swept across the air, precisely fitting itself upon the kitten's tail. It glided down her tail until it was around 1/3 of the tail's length before shrinking and latching onto the tail. Whoa! The little kitten couldn't help but twist her head around to admire her new accessory. The crimson-red-colored bangle looked rather nice against her silver fur. She could also feel a small warmth emanating from the bangle, spreading throughout her body, pleasantly warming her body. Congratulations, puny cat. You are the 39th person to complete your trial. You ready to leave? The guardian spirit asked. Yes. My gains have been many, I'm ready to leave. The little kitten stopped thinking as a look of despair took over her. Actually, see, can we leave off teleporting me out of here? For maybe half an hour. No. An hour. No, how about F-? Goodbye, feel free to return in 2 years. The guardian spirit's voice interrupted her as he spoke with a cheeky grin. The guardian spirit suddenly clicked its red furry fingers. Woo-woo. The little kitten felt like crying as she felt the familiar feeling of being teleported once more. The little kitten found herself in the outside world once more after recovering from her sickened state. Looking around, the little kitten noticed several other people outside as well, though not even half as many as had entered. Looks like a lot of people's trials are still ongoing. The little kitten noted. Thinking this, the little kitten began to survey the surrounding people for any familiar faces. Eventually she only noticed one figure. It was the head of the Wilderwolf soldiers, the one who was always wielding a spear. Meow. The little kitten cutely mewed in greeting as she sauntered up to his side. Coming closer, she saw the man was studying a spear in his hand intently. She also noted that this was a different spear from the one he usually wielded before. The spear he was currently holding was a deep blue color with intricate runes running across its body and blade. The guard had violet fur spiking outwards and overall, it looked quite mystical. Oh, hey little lass. The Wilderwolf soldier smiled upon noticing the kitten's appearance. You're the second of us to complete the trial. Meow. The little kitten pointed her attention to the spear in his hand. Noticing this, the Wilderwolf soldier smiled brightly as he said, "Ah, this was my reward for completing my trial. It's a blue rarity vibrant spear. It's a vibrant weapon, so it's a little above my cultivation level, so I can't fully utilize its capabilities yet. But when I hopefully reach the inner haven rank, this will be quite a good ally." Meow. The little kitten nodded her little head in agreement. Oh, that's new. Is that your reward? The head of the Wilderwolf soldier asked as his gaze set upon the bangle that clung to her swinging tail. His lips formed into a grin. Oh, is that? Well, it would seem that you were able to obtain an item of gold rarity. The crimson iris is an item I have heard of. It's quite powerful. It may only be a dull weapon, but it is still quite impressive nonetheless. Meow. The little kitten felt like blushing, a boastful glint in her eyes forming. After this exchange of words, as having a proper conversation would be quite difficult when one of the two parties couldn't even speak, the two turned silent. Ah, I really wish I could talk. The little kitten sighed. In her boredom, the little kitten chose to spend her time working on her cultivation as she awaited the arrival of Jonathan, Uncle Kill and the rest of the Wilderwolf soldiers.